Video control doesn't.
All right, we're live on YouTube now. Let's see. Hopefully this works out without any problems. It says excellent connection. I don't see. There we go. Okay, guys, let's do this again. Hopefully people will see us in a minute. We'll give them time to join. But at least I can turn all the widgets back on. All right. Looks like the stream's coming through. I don't know if Camilla can check it, but hopefully she knows. Okay, she's too busy. All right.
Let me see if I can check it real quick.
It does seem to be working now on YouTube, so.
Oh, yes, it is. Cool. See if it'll let me pull up the chat.
I don't know if Camilla can.
I'm getting it, and we got Be Great Anyway says, well done, an adventure already. Weren't we just talking about adventures?
See, this isn't an adventure. This is just some fucking technical bullshit. But yes, it's an adventure. We'll call it an adventure. This is about the speed of adventure most of us can handle. So we're good. All right, Be Great Anyway. That's Orthodox Southpaw. What's up, brother? Tell your friends. Get everybody in here. So, okay. All right. It'll do, Donkey. It'll do. It's not what I wanted, but
he called us a bunch of goths.
Right?
They goths. I can hear you, goth.
Oh, good. All right. So everyone's back. Let me pop the chat out. We're going to do this like we always do. Let's say hello to everybody. So first and foremost, we've got Orthodox Southpaw as Be Great Anyway. He's saying he can hear both of us now. Good. Nemo Grows Crazy says, glad to see you guys. Thank you, Nemo. Atropa, my girl. What's up? She says, hey again. Gypsy Nomad 912. DHEA. Love you guys. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. They love you, EA. They really do. And Jacqueline Land says, hello, everyone. All right. So I still love Rumble. I want to tell you guys, I still love Rumble, but I really can't fucking stand the fact that there's so many fucking problems streaming over there, and I don't know what's wrong. It might be just the software I'm using, but I'm going to try using, they've got on their website, they now have a built-in streaming, like the way YouTube used to have it. They now have something like that. So I've
actually heard from a couple people that works better than using a third party.
That's probably true. So I will experiment with that, and by the time I go to do a new stream on there, I will use that, because whatever I'm using now, Streamlabs, it works great with YouTube, flawlessly with YouTube, but terribly with everything else. So I give up. I'm tired of fighting it. You know, Wu Wei says just lean into it and be good with it, and that's just what we're going to have to do. Just like a bad acid trip, don't fight it. Just whatever comes up, just enjoy the show and learn from it. And
I mean, it is pretty cool to be able to, you know, this one doesn't work, we can hop over here. That doesn't work, we can try this out. That's really, well, you know, to get personal with it, you know, when I got shut down, that was a question of like, well, do we keep going? It's like, well, yeah, I keep going. Well, how? I don't know how, but I'm going to keep going. Like, you know, if I've got to broadcast with a pirate signal to radio stations, I'll figure it out. But I'm not going to stop doing what I do. And so yeah, if you got to use YouTube, if you can use YouTube and you got to do it, whatever, do what you got to do.
Got to do it. But I will not rest. All right, I will, because I don't want to fucking be fighting this war my whole life. But I will not rest until these fucking corporations are exposed and brought down, and they're being brought down. So just to be clear, there's still a lot we can say on YouTube. I just feel more comfortable on Rumble, because if we do want to get off into some edgy topics, it's a little safer there. You're less likely to get shadow banned. So
can we talk about Jeff's Island?
About what?
Jeff's Island?
Jeff's Island? You mean Jekyll Island or Jeff's Island? What's Jeff's Island?
Jeff's Island. Mr. Jeffrey. I don't know if I can say his name here.
Oh, you mean, yeah, you could see, I mean, you can say he didn't kill himself. Maybe that's the one we're talking about.
Well, that's obvious. There's looks like Diddy was another one of his, another setup very similar to that, being funded by the CIA to cause all kinds of abuse. And now all of a sudden they've got all kinds of things on him. It's a really interesting, what you see on the surface is just a pale reflection of what's happening underneath the shadows, and so there's a huge uproar happening. So I like it.
The average person lives in front page reality. It's the most, superficial of the consensus reality matrix delusions. It is whatever the news tells them. It's whatever people like Neil deGrasse Tyson tell them. It's what all of the trusted sources in media tell them, and they don't question. And this brings up an important topic. We're all taught to be skeptical, but who are we taught to be skeptical of? Never the authorities, only the kooks and the quacks and the weirdos on the side. You're never taught to question the king. You're always taught to question the guy who says the king's wrong. And this leads back to what we were talking about before with Terrence Howard. Terrence Howard, I think, I mean, if I say I think he's right, that doesn't mean I think everything he says is gold or right. What I think is that he's on the right track with most of what he says. He's talking about valid, both, yes, they're esoteric principles, but they weren't always that. That used to be more mainstream in the understanding. People don't realize that real science and real physics and real metaphysics have been withheld from humanity. I don't know how long. I just know that we don't have it. Okay. Like whenever we did have it, probably thousands of years ago.
Since Egypt, at least. I'm going to put that marker on it. Egypt and Samaria was not the beginning of civilization, but that was when we lost civilization and got restarted with this pale comparison.
I think so. Something like that anyway.
Yeah, I mean, because it does. I mean, like you had mentioned before about you look in the all of the Hindu texts and looking at the ancient wars that were happening with nuclear weapons being exploded, with the what was the name of the craft, the Vimanas?
The Vimanas, yeah, that's one.
We're not creating anything new, and this is one of the big things, even with magic that I've had to. I got no innovations because it's all old stuff. One of my biggest innovations recently with my book, Ars Zoesha, you can get it at blog.co/Zoesha. One of my biggest innovations there was to use a lot of fire, a triangle of fire around me, and fire, and that does a lot of cool magical stuff. But it's like that's not new. In fact, that's the oldest thing ever, was to find your gods in the fire. And so in every way, with our magic, with our technology, with our society and our way of interacting with each other, we've gone through a tremendous disruption several thousand years ago, and we're just now climbing back out of it.
Sure. I mean, in my way of looking at things, the essence of magic is psychological. It's nothing physical. It has nothing to do with the physical stuff, but the physical stuff is like a Dumbo feather. And the thing is, that too is wrong. So it's like you can go too far to making it psychological and too far to making it mechanical. There's a happy medium, but maybe what I would like to do is suggest that we start redefining things a little bit. So what is magic exactly, right? What is sorcery? What are these different things? And over the years, trying to kind of being a little bit of a comparative, philosopher and comparative mystic and all that. In other words, like comparative religion, like Joseph Campbell, where he would go and research all the different myths and traditions around the world, figure out what they agree upon, and then turns out, hey, look, the whole world seems to have the same religion. We just express it differently and emphasize different things, but we're all saying many of the same things, corrupting them in the case of mainstream religions almost all the time. But fundamentally, what the Hindus are talking about are not that different from what the Egyptians and the Sumerians and everybody was talking about. So the question then becomes, it's not a matter of what is the objective nature of this. The question is actually, how do we interface with it based on our own personal and cultural influence? If you live in India, the Hindu mythology feels right to you. If you grow up in a European context, the pagan, the Greco-Roman, the Hellenistic stuff feels more right for you. Even Egyptian feels more right for you because it's so closely connected to Greece and everything for 1,000 years. So there's this problem that human beings sort of get because we're so dumbed down, because we're taught the wrong metaphysics, we think of these things as objective in the way they're presented to us, as if Zeus is an objective physical person living on Mount Olympus who hurls lightning bolts like the myth says. Well, that can't be true in the way we think. It could be interdimensional. Maybe there's another dimension where Mount Olympus exists and he is like that. Maybe it's like the Marvel universe where the gods are actually just really advanced alien beings and they seem to be magical, and Midgard exists and all these things exist, and you have, yeah, sure, that's possible. It may even be likely, but you're not connecting with that. Those beings don't give a fuck that you're burning a calf for them. That's not probably not. In other words, if, wait, hold on, let me just finish it. So I'm saying if they're physical beings in a physical, they're not interested in that. Now, if they're spiritual beings, like etheric beings, sure, maybe they're vibing off of it. Maybe they're getting something out of it. But then are they really humanoid the way we're describing them? You know, so there's this disconnect that we have, especially as modern people that don't have that personal connection to these traditions that our ancestors did. This is why I think like things like Jediism and non-duality and the New Age movement are such a big hit, because they take all of that dogmatized stuff out and they just give you the raw metaphysical possibilities, and then you can play with them. You want to talk to gods? Maybe they exist. You want to not, you think that they don't? Maybe they don't. It's not a requirement, is what I'm saying. Like it's a more open playing field. And I think that appeals to people because people are kind of burnt out on religiosity, dogmatism, and all that. At least I am. I know that one of the reasons I'm tired of working with the demon stuff is because the people into demonolatry tend to be no different than Christians. Sorry, but it's true. They tend to be no fucking different. They get offended when you say the name wrong, if you don't worship right, if you don't. And I'm not into worship in the first place. So I was already like behind the eight ball with some of these people. So This is why like some of these things, I think we need to.
There is a strong Christian that sounds exactly like a lot of the Mormons that I go to church with, but you know, in a few different ways. One of them going to church not for their connection with Jesus, but for the connection with the other people in church, and that's fine. That's perfect. That's awesome.
That's better. I actually think that's a more healthy approach. If you're going to church because you think that priest is telling you something that's going to get you out of hell, you're an idiot. You're just a fucking fool. Like I don't know how else to tell you that. Like I grew up on the streets enough to know a fucking con artist when I see one. You know what I mean? You know, and so it's that's not how and maybe the priest believes. I'm not even saying the priest doesn't believe. I'm saying they've been sold a pig and a poke too. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So religiosity it's always superficial. Christianity, there's nothing wrong with Abrahamism, Christianity, if you can uncorrupt it, if you can pull out the symbolism and recognize what they're actually saying, they're perfectly fine as spiritual paths. They're perfectly fine as mystical paths, as ways to refine the self. When you understand that revelation is a ritual, not a prophecy, when you understand that everything Jesus said was corrupted by, you know, the church after Constantine and all that crap, when you realize that whatever Yeshua really said was not worship my ass and go to heaven, but was in fact, if you look at the verbiage that's used, I can actually take all the things that are said and correlate them to things in Eastern mysticism and be like, that's what he was actually saying. They just twisted the lines around so it doesn't sound that way. The whole communion thing, you know, eat of my body. In Hinduism, your physical body is called a food body. It's literally the physical body is called the food body. When you translate it literally, it means the food body.
Well, in Egypt, there was a celebration of the Isis Horus birth through a sacrament that was done as well. This is part of like everything. This is part of everything.
It's part of everything. It's not unique.
Again, nothing new exists.
Nothing new exists, and this is why the whole idea that Jesus was this, you know, whether he was a special being or not, or even existed or not, it's obvious that the Christian religion is just a reboot and a recorruption of old truths, because they don't want you to have the real truth. They want you to have a superficial religion that makes you a slave. And this is why this is one of the reasons why people are like, why did you take your demon in review videos down? Well, I put them to private for a while till I decide how I want to handle it, because I don't like the way some people. Now, it's wrong of me to say you shouldn't see it because I don't like the way you're approaching it. That's not my intention. What I want
That's
to do,
a religious thing there going on there.
yeah, what I want to do is I'm going to take those and put them in a new playlist with a new intro or something, just to explain, hey, this was back in 2018. This is no longer exactly what I think or practice. That doesn't mean I didn't have these experiences. They were still valid, but they're open for a wider interpretation than what you might have been doing. I never presented those things, or maybe I did, but I didn't mean to. I never intentionally presented those things as if, oh, I'm communing with objectively this being. I told you guys, I did this ritual, this stuff happened, take it or leave it. Whatever you think it really was, doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I benefited from it. I grew from it. It was real to me at the time, and it still probably would be to me today. I still do some of the same things. But I could sense that I was veering into almost like dogmatic religion land. Like I was getting a little too, like, it's about the spirits. And that's fine, but that's not the path that I felt comfortable with. To me, I was using them more as guides and occasional, like, thread pullers, if you will, to, like, tear apart the tapestry of bullshit that I believe and that kind of thing. And once I got that, I realized I'm done with this. I don't really care about this stuff as much, especially the Goetia, because I now understand the Goetia is probably closer to what the Picatrix was about. So the Picatrix, it's all about making images, right? You draw an image at the right time of the right alignments, and you're piggybacking off that current of energy in the celestial spheres, which are manifestations of the ether. Bringing up Terrence Howard again, it all makes sense. Terrence Howard's work actually fits the Picatrix very well. So
yeah,
the Goetia is very similar, because if you look, they're you even have people who figured out what their astrological and what their correspondences are to angels, and that big wheel that they have. I forget who made that, but that big wheel that you have like all of them on it, and who rules who, and but fantastic. And you know what that aligns with pretty well, with a little bit, and I'm not that much of a nerd to do it, but the little bit I looked at it aligns well with the same kind of Picatrix concept. If you do these things at the right planetary hours and times, you invoke this entity, meaning, Baal or whatever your demon you want. It's their images. And if you look at their descriptions, they're a lot like the images of the Picatrix. They're very similar in concept. They represent things symbolically that are forms of energy to invoke. Now, what is the Solomonic tradition?
I'm sorry. Let me stop you and back you up just a little bit, because you're going really fast, but there's a lot of stuff you're burying a ton of gold behind you. So one of those things is that when you're having a magical experience, you should thrust yourself into it and lose all objectivity. Mm-hmm. That when you're talking
in
to
the moment,
in the moment, that's the only thing that exists, and then you can report on that and whatever. I'm wondering though, what's changed, or how has your perspective changed to the point that you wanted to not make those videos public? Or was it how that was being received by the demonologers, or what was the shift, and what was your perspective then, and what is it now, and what made that happen?
Taking a break from the direction I was going to explain, part of it actually has to do with diving deeper into what the Cabal New World Order is about. And you recognize that they seed into our culture corrupted ideas for us to stumble on, and they're blinds, basically. Demonolatry is a form of blind. I'm sorry to the people who are fervent demonolators that really love them. I'm not even saying you're not in contact with entities. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm telling you is that as someone who from a very young age was dealing with psychic vampirism and psychic vampire entities of various kinds, I can tell you that people who are not prepared can open doors to such vampiric entities in the guise of these things. They can destroy them. Look what happened to the guy who got you in trouble. It's a very similar thing. They open doors to some, they have mental illness. Then the whispers come, they start hearing, do this and I'll give you power. And they feed on people like that. but this ultimately leads back to this same group. We're on YouTube, so I have to be a little bit more careful with my language right now, because I am not anti-Semitic in the slightest. I don't blame the Jews or anything like that. That's not in my wheelhouse. And I will kick the shit out of anybody who tries to make it about that.
Yeah.
No, it's a sect of a specific sect of these people that believe in a Saturnian deity. It's actually Saturn that they worship. It's not the God of Abraham the way you're taught. It's a Saturnian entity. It's time. They're worshiping the god of time. They're worshiping the god of entropy, the god of devouring. And there's the only problem with that is when it's taken out of balance. When that entity is in its proper alignment, it's part of the beauty of nature. You need the entropy, you need the old age, you need the corruption, you need the noble rot for life to flow. So there's nothing wrong with venerating that essence of reality and personifying it, and there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is when you try to get one to rule over the other, when you try to cause, so they're trying, this one group is and this is just one head of the Hydra, let me be clear. This one head of the Hydra is trying to invoke their Messiah by corrupting humanity as maximally as possible. It's sort of like saying, God, if you're real, you will stop me from destroying your creation. Like if you want to have an audience with God, one of the ways might be to be such a thorn in his side that God shows up. I'm not saying that's what they're doing. I'm just using that as a kind of an analogy.
If these people have half of the information I have, they can connect with God anyway. All the gods are right there. You don't even have to go anywhere. They're right within your own fucking body.
Except they are materialists. You have to understand, these are people that they understand what we understand. It's not that they don't. It's that they're choosing the material delusion instead of, in other words, they want to rule in hell. They want to rule in hell.
This is why they're doing particle accelerator colliders rather than opening up an astral gateway. They're trying to make a physical gateway because they don't trust the astral.
I don't know about that one. I don't know how I feel about that.
Tell me your thoughts on that.
I don't know. That one I don't know. I haven't decided yet, because I can see both. I can see both. In other words, I can see where both could be true. One of the things you have to remember is when you have something spinning at that rate, okay, you're kind of, there are supposedly, if you watch Vladimir, what's his name? I can't remember. If Orthodox Southpaw would please give us the name in the chat. He remembers the name better than I do. But there's this old Russian conspiracy theorist guy. His first name's Vladimir. I think it's like Tarkovsky or something like that. And he's got 8, 9, 10 hours worth of all the Nazi UFO tech, all of that hidden history that no one knows about, Antarctica. He's got hours showing the diagrams and the different developed things that have, all of this shit. It's a marvelous collection. Not all of it's 100%. Some of it is incorrectly, presented, but there it is. Vladimir Trzynski. Thank you. Be great anyway. So if you watch his stuff, you'll find that you don't necessarily have to have the entire part of the ship spinning. You don't necessarily have to have a solid disk of material spinning. You can actually just have a high enough density of the right material spinning at a high enough speed to do the same thing. Now, what are they doing? They're causing oscillations in the etheric field, which changes the resonance of this object. So it actually decouples, just like Terence was saying, from the electrogravitic field. In other words, so we don't actually have gravity, like Terence is saying. I agree with him. I think he's probably right. I don't think gravity is a bending of space-time because there's so much mass and it's pulling on what? What is it pulling on space-time? Bullshit. What this is most likely what he's describing, or similar to. At least that's a feature of it, the way he's with the pressure of the. So he's describing what we call empty space isn't really empty space. It's the ether. It's not empty at all. There's no such thing as emptiness anywhere. There's actually just stuff you can't perceive. That's really all it is. It's solid all the way through, right? It's just you can't perceive everything. So you think there's empty space. Like between you and the camera, is there empty space or a whole bunch of air? You know,
Oh
and
my.
what is that empty, and what is that air floating through? Empty space? No, it's a medium. If it wasn't a medium, you couldn't have an interaction, right? Without a medium, there's no, so no, there is, and they call it fields, but really it's probably the ether, and the ether probably has multiple dimensions in which it can vibrate and expand and contract and everything he describes. This gives you all these different fields that they find in science, the electromagnetic field. Anyway, they have no idea what gravity is. They've never had an idea what gravity is. They just know how it behaves, which is Einstein's relativity and all that. That's fine. A lot of Einstein's discoveries can still fit in the etheric principle. It can still fit in that view. You just are changing the fundamental stage that it's playing out on. It's just like when I say everything that you believe in science can still be true, and consciousness can be fundamental, not physical reality. It doesn't change how it looks or behaves necessarily, but it does open up different possibilities for what you can do with it. If you believe that everything is embedded in empty space, and that empty space is nothing but the mystery of empty space, it's not consciousness, it's not ether, it's nothing. Okay, but that limits you quite tremendously on even what you're willing to investigate, because you've already decided it's nothing. There's nothing there. Well, if you assume that something's there, then you start acting like it. You start doing procedures and research that can check for that. And they don't. I mean, you have the Casimir effect. This pretty much proves the concept of 0 point energy and all that by itself. So,
But yeah, yeah. Well, and like we said at the beginning, it's not accidental. This was a program. This is a program that's been ongoing, a program of all right, so this is where a lot of these different fields might start to tie in. And actually, it was interesting how Terrence Howard did start to tie in a lot of these different things, including the alien UFO, UAP phenomena that they're. If we're imagining space as being empty space between us, then for sure there's going to be a difficulty in getting there. There's going to be all kinds of issues that we're not even aware of. But when we start to understand everything as being an electrical or a field, or like you say, a field of some sort, that begins to open up all possibilities. But scientists are able to make up shit like dark matter and dark energy, which they have no evidence of that existing or have any idea what that would even be, but they've made it up. And so they're willing to invest themselves in something made up like that, but they're not willing to invest themselves at all in consciousness. And so that tells you that's the forbidden area. That's where they're not allowed to go.
Exactly. And not only are they not allowed to go there, when someone does, they ridicule you as if it's woo, it's quantum woo, it's magic, it's this and that. And they don't want you to go. And this is because these same people, these Saturnian cultists, they want the world to be trapped in a materialistic view because you're easier to rule. You prove that you're just an animal then. If you're stupid enough to fall for that and not figure your way out of that lie, then you deserve to be controlled like a pet, to be owned like cattle. And that's how they see you. Some of them see you that way because they have bloodlines that go to the entities that engineered us. Yes, but speaking as someone who probably has a few genetic markers for that because of my own heritage, that wiring in my mind, in my bio brain, whatever the fuck this really is, that facilitates that. Yes, but that doesn't mean I'm better than other people. It just means that I can see in a color you can't. It's not really what you think it is. So these people, though, they think of regular humans as subhuman. They see you as human animals, not true humans. And this is what gives them the right to take you to the island and do things to you and all of this shit, because they know that humans were engineered to be vessels for mental beings, for non-physical beings. There's no question in my mind, especially after that shroom trip I had, that human bodies are not what we are. Obviously, you don't even have to go on a meditative excursion or something. You can figure out through these things. You can find out. You can talk to the shrooms. I'm not the first one who got this message, apparently, because after telling people I got this realization, a bunch of other people told me a similar thing. And then I found other people on YouTube talking about it. Like, you find out that you are a mind, that these bodies have been engineered to be vessels for you to use, like a probe, like a skin suit, like an avatar, so that you can interact like a video game. That's why we compare it to the simulations so much. That's why we use the Matrix as a metaphor.
Yeah, it's such an inaccurate analogy that it loses a lot of people, the whole simulation thing. But it's closer. It's getting closer.
Yes.
You know.
So I shit on the simulation theory because people want to make it about being in a computer simulation. That is provably false. That's not what's going on. We are, though, in a mental simulation, and that isn't even stretching things. You can, if I sit down with a materialist for an hour and really just make the case, I guarantee you there isn't a materialist on the planet, if they're being sincere and not being an asshole about it, that would disagree with what I would say up to a certain point. If I said to them, every single one of us lives in a mental hologram that our mind tells us is the world. In other words, what you see in front of you is just what your mind tells you it's supposed to look like. That doesn't mean that there isn't an objective world outside that. That doesn't. So in other words, the materialists will listen to what I'm, because it's built into their model, is this understanding that each of us doesn't experience reality. We experience what our brain thinks reality looks like. Our mind thinks reality looks like. I'm going so far as to say that you don't even have a brain, because the idea of a brain is in your mind too. So whatever you think a brain is just your mind's idea of what a brain is. You don't know what a brain is. So as you go down this rabbit hole far enough, you recognize that these people pushing this materialistic perspective, they're being disingenuous, because you can easily pull the rug right out from under them just with that one thing. They'll say, well, you sound like a solipsist. No, I'm not a solipsist. Actually, I can prove to you I'm not a solipsist, because I'm talking to you like you exist. So I'm not a fucking solipsist, okay? It's that simple. I'm talking to you like you have a mind that matters. So no, I'm not a solipsist. But what I am is someone who recognizes that the conundrum of solipsism exists because it's a clue. The fact that there is a solipsistic argument at all gives you a clue. That clue is that, well, if you read Kant, he describes it very well when he talks about the idea of a noumenal world that we don't experience, we don't have access to. It's like invisible to us, but yet that's what we're experiencing indirectly through the interface of this hologram. So the idea that there is physicality is asserting that the noumenal reality is physical, but that's not the case. The noumenal reality results in a physical hologram, in a hologram that behaves in a way that we call physicality, but it's just how it looks. It's not what it is. It's just like when you're playing a video game. Does that video game exist in the way that you see it? No, that's just what your computer makes it look like. It's a bunch of shit going on in a processor somewhere. There's no World of Warcraft. There's no Azeroth. There's no Night Elves. Those things don't exist. They're just images on your screen. In the same way, everything you're experiencing, from an orgasm to death itself, is not really what you think it is. It's a representation of it. Now, I do have to go and mention this. We got a huge super chat from Jesse H.
I saw that.
Yeah, that's a fucking juicy one. I didn't want to derail what we were saying. So that is a really juicy super chat.
That's a really, in a capitalist society, that is a really firm way of showing your appreciation. And so thank you. That is appreciated that you would make that donation. That's awesome. Thank you.
That is really awesome. And of course, any amount over $100 in general on the stream, I always split with my guests. So after taxes,
after taxes, every time I'm like, dude, stop, and he's like, nope, gotta do it. So yeah.
So I really appreciate that, and thank you for joining us. And if you're here for EA, that's awesome. I hope you stay for me in the future. But EA and I have been like friends for a while. I think we have similar mental disorders with ADHD and everything. So we'll lose touch, and it's totally fine. Like a year later, be like, hey, how you doing? I don't care. Let's hang out. Sure.
Dude, you know what though? I prefer that rather than the people that are always hanging on my nuts.
But at the same time, if you gave me the option to buy, like, there's a meme that goes around, like, normalize buying 100 acres with your friends and raising your families together, I would do that in a fucking heartbeat. If someone said to me, like, here's $1 million, buy a nice property, here's a starting seed amount of resources to either build, or already there's houses on it, and these people you can trust, but there's also legally binding reasons that you can trust them too, just to be safe, I would jump on that faster than a hero would jump on a live grenade in World War II. Like, I would be all over that like white on rice, because I for one am fucking sick of this everybody, like, don't get me wrong, I'm fine with the everybody for themselves angle. What my problem is that the whole point of being for yourself is so that you can like build up your tribe, man. Like you gotta, like, where's your tribe at? Like if you don't have a tribe, like what's the point of having all the biggest, sharpest rocks? Like what's the fucking point? So like,
Yeah,
you know,
I do got to throw something. Well, so for again, real quick, Jeff, thanks for the support there, and thanks for being here. Appreciate you. Got to be careful with that. Like, bro, you're invited onto my compound, but I don't know that too many other people are. And here's why I say that. Every single person right now who's out there talking crap on me online, making videos about how awful I am, those are all people I bent over backwards to help. Those are all people that I went into my own personal bank account and sent them money to help them pay their bills when they were having a rough time. Those are all people that when they were writing shit, that I was able to take it and polish it and make it worthwhile. And so every one of those pieces of shit that has turned on me, at one point I bent over backwards to help them. And so with any kind of real world community, got to take that into consideration that most, you can't trust most people.
No, you can't. And the way I would get around that, number one is, well, for me, I can't stand handouts like that. I don't mind if I'm doing a live stream, people want to donate, they want to, because I feel like I'm working right now. I'm entertaining you. I feel like, you know, I feel like a guy who's sitting on the subway with the fucking open, you know, guitar case, and he's playing and he's got his friend. You want to walk by and throw me 100 for that? Beautiful. I'm doing something to earn it. I cannot stand, and I mean this, I cannot fucking stand when people try to bail me out of my problems, especially if I don't ask. Now, if I ask, that's a different story. If I'm coming to you, that means I've already put my ego and pride and everything aside, and I've also acknowledged that I need help. Until I acknowledge that I need help, I don't want it. So I don't like that. Now, number two, I guess, you know, maybe I was raised by too many samurai movies, but I don't like when people do that kind of stuff. That's why I don't go to people and say, hey, can you bail me out? Can I borrow money? I would rather go hungry than do that. And with you, like in your case, I always try to make it like, okay, there's some reciprocity here. Like there's an exchange going on. Maybe I can't equal what you bring to the table because you're more popular. Maybe you can't equal what I bring to the table because I have this and blah, 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 blah. But we can still benefit each other in a way where there's balance to the equation. Nobody feels like they owe somebody something. In fact, we feel like we owe each other more for that reason, because we're not doing it with any strings attached. We're just being friendly and treating each other with decency. And if we make money or we profit or whatever off of it, it's like, that's the icing on the cake. And it's like when a good band gets together, they don't get together and say, we're going to make millions. No, we're going to get together and make cool music. And then that turns into millions. So I totally get it. And not only that, I have let's put it this way. I have a pet peeve for kiss ups. Like that guy, Elric, who showed up and like, he probably, if he's here, he's gonna be so mad. You're bringing me up again. You know, we both had an issue with that guy.
On a personal level, I hope Elric's doing all right. I hope he's doing okay. I mean, look, I'll tell you, yeah, go ahead.
Unless everybody and their brother lied about him, right? So
unless.
So that is possible, but no, and so people, like, I don't like, and I hate to name drop someone and gather their, but I don't give a fuck anymore. Like, curse the shit, I don't give a fuck. I'm kind of tired of community drama and community attitudes and trying to fit into some, oh, you don't want to offend people. Oh, you don't want, dude, we just saw what happens when people are too pussy to, you know, they walk on too many eggshells for too long. You end up with exactly the civilization we're living in right now. I'm not saying we have to be assholes to each other, by the way. What I'm saying, because I don't like that either. I'm not saying that. In fact, that's one of the things that bothers me, is everybody is too rude to each other right off the bat. What I'm saying is, we don't need to walk on eggshells, though. You don't have to pull every punch in the world because you're afraid some group is going to cancel you for saying the wrong thing or for talking out of turn. So I'm not trying to start drama with Elric or anything like that by mentioning him. I was saying that just for the laughs, but stuff like that, I can't stand kiss ups, suck ups. I can't stand that. I can't stand when people try to ingratiate themselves on you. And like you, and this is no offense to the people in my audience or in my community, there's not a lot of people that that are truly self-reliant or self-sufficient or self-made. And those that are, they don't want to group up either. You know, people who, so what, this is what ends up happening. People like you and me and maybe Jen Vatsa and some other people, we'll start our businesses. We'll put our flag in the ground, whether it's a business, community, whatever. We make leaders of ourselves because we see nobody else can step up, or maybe we have a good idea, we want to make money or whatever it is. And then you've got the sycophants that follow in because they can't do it for themselves. They don't know how to take the risk. They're too afraid to take the risk, or they're trying, but they don't know that success, especially in the content creation thing, it's a gimmick ridden shit show. But ultimately, all you really have to do is just achieve a certain level of professionalism in your work. In other words, have a decent microphone, have a decent camera, and know what you're talking about, and be entertaining. Any of those things. It's not a lot. It's actually, everyone has these abilities. It's just nobody uses them. And be consistent, just like as I've discovered by taking a couple of months off because I've been going through bullshit. My community just about died. Everything's just about dying because I abandoned it. Well, if you're not consistently making videos and doing live streams once a week, what do you expect? You're not going to have an audience. And it's not about going viral. It's about just every week, add those subs. Every week, add those views. That's all it is. If you get one a week, you're still getting a lot, because eventually that's going to blow up. So just keep working.
100%. What you're saying is it is the formula. Like, you've got to have. I'm
here. I dropped something.
He's got an animal that escaped.
I'm good.
But you're giving away the formula, and that's the same formula I've given to a few of the people that have come through Become Living God, that have been like, hey, you just put out this really cool book, so here's what you need to do for the rest of your life: write a newsletter and do a video blog, and then do a live chat once a week. What? That's too much. Well, okay then. Like, you keep saying you want what I have. You can have it. I don't have special bloodlines. I didn't make, the packs I made, I teach you how to make them. Like, fucking, there's nothing special that I'm doing that you can't do. Most people, well, a couple things. Most people aren't willing to put in the work. That's a big part of it. Most people that want it aren't willing to put in the work. Most people that want the reward aren't willing to put in the work, because you and we're not doing this right now because of any reward. We're doing this because we're obsessed, crazy people that just have one focus.
Like you were saying about Terrence Howard, we both have a piece of Terrence Howard in us. We both have that same problem. And it's actually, I would actually say it's not a problem. I would actually say the problem is not enough people have that mentality. And any negative that you see about him with his, like we were saying before, the Rumble stream turned to shit. Any of those negatives where he seems conceited or whatever, those are learned behaviors. Those are responses to a broken situation. And yes, just because he's a genius doesn't mean he's enlightened. It doesn't mean that he knows how to let go of his ego. Even if someone knows that their ego is the problem, doesn't mean that it's automatically fixed. So I would say, like, in his defense, again, when you are that far removed from the society's ideas of reality, you can't help but seem crazy or self-centered or whatever, because you're used to being self-reliant and being the only voice of reason in the room that makes sense to you. That's a dangerous place to be in, because you end up in like a personal echo chamber. But at the same time, it's understandable. I go through this on a daily basis because I am neurodivergent with ADHD and everything else. I have a very high IQ and my interests are very eccentric. And I know way too many fucking things. I've dived way too deep down too many rabbit holes, and I've only gone a fraction compared to the people that I study from. So the problem is I can't relate to the normal rank and file human being that I see as basically dumbed down chattel. Okay. I see them as people that, yes, they're people, but they have been damaged. They've been brain damaged. They've been addled. They have been indoctrinated. And there's no hope for a lot of them. For a lot of them, there's no hope.
Let me jump in on that with a little, this might be too much for YouTube, so sorry if I get you messed up or anything, but...
Oh, well, I'll just, whatever.
it it really started to perturb me how much sexual abuse is going on in the world against children.
Yep.
To the point that I was like, wait a minute, it seems like.
Remember what I told you, dude? Would you kill the baby? Would you do the baby? You know, like that's the kissing the ring of power.
Well, and even to the point of that it gets infiltrated out where you get a slap on the wrist and you're back out in society if you ever get caught, and you're welcome to just do it again and again and again, to the point that I started going, wait a minute, this is a program, an ongoing program. Because if you've got a traumatized society, that's very, I'm not going to say traumatized people are easy to control, very prone
but that's
to,
absolutely one of the entry points for mind control is trauma. There's no question. Without trauma, it's very hard because you have to break them first, and trauma is one of the best ways to break them. You don't even have to break them in a way that's violent. You just have to cause enough cognitive dissonance that their mind starts to break down from what do you think happens to all the, and I don't want to make this too partisan because I'm not sitting here saying Republicans or right wingers are better, but what do you think happened to all the left wingers over these last years with the Trump derangement syndrome, constantly having, you know, this guy's bad and yet it doesn't make sense. They're going through cognitive dissonance on a level that Trump or something. You can't comprehend what it's like for the other people on the opposite side of this discussion, because everything that they believe is true is telling them that this man's a demon incarnate, and yet there's no actual proof of that. And so when they encounter someone who doesn't agree with them, they think that you're crazy because they can't be crazy because it hurts too much if they're wrong. So there's pain there. So they've been traumatized. It's been a very subtle trauma though, because it's not a trauma where you're beating someone up. They observe what happens to people who don't agree with the mainstream view. That's the trauma. They witness, they can down, or even maybe we are into those things, whatever they're shown, and they see us getting taken down. They see other people getting taken down. They see all of this stuff, and this causes trauma for them. It turns into the Agent Smith effect. So the Agent Smith effect is someone is indoctrinated from birth into an ideology, and when someone challenges that, the programming takes over. They stop thinking and they just start parroting the programming. This is why you'll have people parroting what the news tells them on both the left and right, because they're programmed, they're indoctrinated. You'll have the Trump people, they will parrot. I mean, I'm into this stuff, so I can see the pattern clearly. I know when most of my Trump friends are going to be talking about a subject because it started filtering in through the alt media. And I know they're going to start talking. I know when my left-wing friends are going to start talking about things because I see what their news is saying. And then I end up having to talk about it because that's all there is to talk about.
Well, this kind of wag the dog thing is real interesting because it's being force-fed to us. In other words, okay, so getting kicked off of social media was the greatest blessing that the demons ever delivered into my life. It gave me so much freedom from other people's stupid fucking thoughts, other people's fucking stupid opinions on bullshit.
You sound like Terrence Howard. What the hell?
Oh, dude, it's amazing. It's like all of a sudden, wait a minute. All of a sudden, I'm walking around and I'm not thinking about taking a picture to post it on Facebook. All I'm doing is being in the moment. In the moment, in the real world, what kinds of things do I have to talk to my neighbor about? Wow, yeah, we got some water problems because we're in the desert, so I could talk to him about the water problems that we got. I hope we don't have to pipe into Lake Powell. That'll be an expensive pipeline. If you're actually living in the real world, the amount of anxiety that you've got over the world goes down massively because I don't think that we're on the edge of destruction. I think they want us to believe we are. I don't think that we hate each other. We don't. They just want us to think that we do. And all of that is being generated from an online fake world. And that if you step out of and actually step into your real life, turn off your devices and go outside and get some sunlight on your goddamn pale skin and talk to your neighbors, you're going to find out the world's not so goddamn bad and nobody really hates each other that bad. Similarly with the bullshit race war that they've got, they're trying to convince the world that there's a race war going on right now that is not happening on the streets. That if you go out, I go out as the whitest guy in the world and go into any black neighborhood, I'm fine and they're fine coming into my home as well. And that is the case for most people around the world. But they're doing this interesting thing of combining hypnotic suggestions with predictive programming. Here's what's going to happen, and here's what you will do. And too many people are falling into it. Too many people are gobbling it up because it does feed the limbic system. Because as soon as you get that signal of me and my tribe is in danger, it gives you a dopamine rush because you think you're going into battle. And so people on their keyboards are literally in their chemical composition are going into battle every day, and they think they're actually accomplishing things when they're not.
And I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say that doesn't work on me. It absolutely does. Like, one of the things that I get addicted to, or at least I was for a few years, was the online drama of trolling politically. And I would go with an alt account, and I'd go, I'd just have fun throwing angry memes at people. And then I realized what a pointless waste of time this is. And I even allowed myself to get a little bit drawn into some of the controversy for a little while there, because everybody I knew, they were upset about something. And I'm like, well, to be relevant, I got to have an opinion too. Of course, I have an opinion. So I'll talk about it. And there's people even in the chat right now who had fallings out with me. We ended up patching it up. We figured it out. But there were people, like, some of these issues that don't affect any of us. So, for example, like certain trans things, like I have trans friends all over the place. Never had a problem with a trans person really in my life that I know of. At least I don't think I did. They don't come off as pedophiles to me. In fact, most of them are vehemently against that shit to the point of violence. In fact, I actually know of all the trannies I know, let's see, I never really counted them, but I'm going to say 3 out of 4 of them actually are conservative, oddly enough. Yeah. I mean, ironically enough, they're actually legitimately conservative. They just like to dress like women and act like women. That's the only thing that makes them not conservative. They vote Republican, they vote conservative, they go to church, so what the hell? So yet we're bombarded with this image that trans people like to have dollars put in their G-strings by children. And even when that was happening, I'm like, where are these people? I've never met one. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm just saying, is this a widespread problem, or is this like a little tiny number of people that somebody wants us all upset about? Oh, that's what it is. They want us upset about a very tiny fraction of a minority of people, and they're probably staged anyway. They're probably not even really happening like this. This is a staged event. Then it occurred to me, I'm watching like this thing with Trump today. I didn't watch his speech because he just says the same things over and over now. I don't really care. I know what's coming. Like, I know what's coming, dude. I know exactly what's coming, and people are not ready for it, but they will be.
Yeah. I wish he was, I'm going to say this out loud. I wish he was the white knight we all hoped he would be.
It's not about a white knight or not. It's here's the deal. So
at one point it really was, though. I'll tell you what, for the, especially leading up to the last election, it was like, fuck, I hope this guy can come and sort this stuff out, because we all saw it going where it's going right now. We all saw this going right here.
He's a figurehead. That's not to say he doesn't have any power or he doesn't make any decisions. He does. Yeah. But a president is a standard, is a flag bearer. Okay, he's Moses holding up the stick, making the Israelites have high morale during a war. He's not doing any fighting, right? Everything around him is staged. All of these legal battles, they're all staged. This thing he's going to the South Bronx today, totally staged. Mm-hmm. I'm watching Fox and all these people do interviews of men on the street. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm actually well aware that the general sentiment about Trump isn't as negative as it was 4 years ago, for one thing. It's also, most people that I know who voted for Biden regret it, and they're very quiet right now. They don't want to talk about that. They're very embarrassed. They're doing the whole, I'm fed up with the world, I'm just staying out of it now. Good. That's probably the right thing, because you've been wrong all this fucking time, so shut the fuck up. But I have words for the other side. If you think worshiping this orange man is going to save you, you're stupid too. You got to learn how to save yourself, for one thing. But that's just a raw philosophical point. Let's go a little further. Yes, there are white hats that are trying to stop the globalist cabal from their genocidal plan of control. And it's working. They've pretty much won. The cabal is doomed. I don't care what anybody... That's not to say they can't still do something to us, but that whole idea that the New World Order is going to depopulate us is over. That's not happening. They already got their depopulation with the fertility impact, the stuff they've done to fertility with plastics and all this kind of shit. So they're going to have a reduction of population no matter what, but they're not going to do it the way they wanted, and they're not going to end up with these 15-minute cities where you're slaves. But Trump's still going to build freedom cities that are going to be, you know, all-in-one modernized cities where you don't have to travel. So a lot of the same stuff is going to happen. It's just not going to have that tyrannical slant to it because it has to happen. Certain things have to change. We cannot live in a world that's based on petroleum anymore for very long. We need it for a while longer to build the infrastructure to get 0-point energy working. But we can't sustain a society on it. It's too polluting. Even if you can scrub all that, it's too much of a problem. But you can't change it overnight because those people who run those things won't let you. They're going to go, what the Saudis are just going to let you take their fortune because you don't want to use gas anymore? No, they're going to use their money to fuck you. So there's a whole thing going on here that people don't understand. Nothing that you see is organic. So when you see these people getting interviewed on Fox from the South Bronx saying Trump is great, blah, 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 and they say, oh, well, we didn't select that audience at all. No, of course not, because most of those are actors. I can tell when someone's acting, by the way, most of the time. It's not hard to tell.
Yeah.
When I can tell, you know, the interviews I saw today, maybe 2 were actually real. The rest were people that those are ringers, right? Those are crisis actors. Those are people they put, you know, those are shills. Okay. And you can tell.
The same lady, this same goddamn lady is going from state to state, and I see her on the news all the time.
Like she's always in the crowd. Yeah, it's always the same people.
In the background, these kids got shot at. I don't know why this happens. And I'm like, how are you across the freaking country at another high school again? Really?
Yeah.
Either you're the shooter at every one of these, or something else is going on.
But society doesn't work on truth. Society works on perception. And the perception has to be that we have a good, benevolent leader. Otherwise, society doesn't function. And I don't care or know what Trump's inner compass is on the ethics and morality spectrum. Probably not very good. But he's an effective PR guy. People go, oh, he sounds so stupid. Because he's not talking to you. He's talking to middle America. Middle America thinks like he does. This is what people aren't comfortable realizing. You go to you go anywhere, you ask people what bothers them. Look, I work at a tree and shrub nursery. There are a lot of Spanish people that we deal with, and most of them don't have papers, okay? We're not racist towards those people, but we would rather that they had papers or not be there. It's not because they're Spanish, it's because they're breaking the law. They're taking money out of my pocket, food off my table, because they can do what they're doing and get a better deal out of it. They don't have to pay taxes like I do. They don't have to do these things. So they get an unfair advantage in my society.
Meanwhile, I'll just say I've got a fiance in Scotland that we've been going on years trying to get her over here. And she can't because she's a white woman from Scotland.
Right.
You know,
she doesn't fit the bill. So
I told her if she gets a tan and learns some Spanish, she can come on through.
Exactly. So, but does that mean I don't like Spanish people now? No, of course not. Of course.
But one thing you're saying about Trump's delivery, it's a really interesting thing because, and specifically on my YouTube days, because my YouTube channel was manicured. I was doing very intentional things to gather an audience and to do my thing there. And with that,
especially the early days, but so did I. People are like, oh, is Thorne so? Yeah, I'm sincere, but I'm still acting. Like there's still a character here.
But with that, with each video, there's a target audience, and so some videos I'm wanting to speak to the people who aren't that experienced, who want this course because they need it so then people go, well, I wasn't talking to you. That's what
exactly.
You don't
I've had criticisms about you as your friend, like constructive critiques. Like, I think he's wrong about this. I wouldn't do it that way. That's normal. Okay. When people are attacking you because you'll present things in a way that, I don't know, how do I put this? It is for the everyman. You are sensationalizing things. But when I talk to you in private, you completely understand enough of what I say. You're not stupid. You're well read, you know your shit, you know your mysticism. Yeah, maybe you're not a Solomonic magician for that, but not you. And I always thought that was stupid because it's like, you know, I think they're jealous is what it really is. I think they get jealous, and I think that people, they
You know,
They
well,
don't.
I'll even take it out of that. I'll take it out of that realm because that's a really good self-defense mechanism I like to go to. But there's also like maybe I'm just not their flavor. Maybe
That's fair, right?
I got a voice that bugs them, or my face doesn't go to, or whatever.
He's that guy with that face that I don't like. Like, really?
Right?
No, I
like,
mean,
dude, that's okay. Like, yeah,
and in all sincerity, when I first discovered your stuff, I liked it, but I also thought I could do better in the sense that I was like, I can make this look less like a business, but I can do the same thing.
Oh, dude, so that's the fucking challenge that I always hope that I can throw out there because I feel like that, dude, that's a signal to me that you've made it when you can do something that somebody else can look at and go, I can do better. Okay, cool.
And that's exactly how I saw it. I'm like, if this guy's legit, he wouldn't find me as a threat. He'd appreciate, because when I see that, I've been saying for years, I'm waiting for my Enkidu to show up. I'm waiting for someone who is not a rival, but an equal to show up and maybe go take what I do a little further and better. And I will support that. People are like, Thorne's so arrogant and egotistical. Yes and no. That's partially a character I play. Like Terrence Howard, I'm trying to plant my flag and be like, this is D.H. Thorne's territory. But part of that is to challenge you. I want people to be offended by my arrogance and yet still learn from me. If you can do that, you have proven you are superior intellect. You can make it. So if you find me abrasive and you're still going, but I like what he says, then I'm proud of you because you've actually got the point of what I'm doing here. It's kind of like I've said in the past, like some of these dark, evil, scary looking beings, that scary shit is just a facade to test you. Can you feel the truth behind that image? Are you just superficial? Like, what's your deal? And not everybody's like, I do the dark thing because there's a lot of people living in darkness who could benefit from what I have to say. You don't have to leave the darkness to become enlightened, my friends. You don't have to. You can still enjoy all the macabre shit you like. You can enjoy all of that. You don't have to become a love and light lunatic. What you do have to do, though, is recognize your divinity and recognize that it's universal. And when you do that, you realize sincere compassion. So sincere compassion doesn't operate like morality. It's not about like, oh, it's wrong to do this because some reason. You just look at that person and realize that's you in another form, and you go, what would I want done to me? And it's that simple. You know, it's like they asked Rumi or whoever, you know, how should we treat other people? And he says, there are no other people. And when you have that understanding what he meant, you go, oh shit, I get it. And just like with your own body, you would excise a cancer. You would cut off an infected limb. You will do harm to the body to save it. But you're not going to just abuse it just to do it. And if you did, it's still your body to do it to, isn't it? So there's like an interesting thing, but you still don't. There's a part of you, they call it empathy, right? But empathy is too clumsy a word. In nature, there's only certain number of creatures that can recognize themselves in a mirror, right?
Yeah.
Like humans, some primates, some dolphins, right? Occasionally a dog will figure it out. But for the most part, the animal kingdom, very few animals recognize their reflection. Likewise, only a certain tiny minority of people recognize themselves in the reflection of the universe. Only a handful of people recognize themselves in others. It's no different. In fact, it works the same way. It's just not visual. It's a realization that what you're looking at is always a reflection of your true self, but not this body. This body's a reflection of the true self too. So when you recognize what the true self is, and that the true self is within all things, it is all things.
Real quick, what's up, Behemoth X?
Hey, I didn't know.
I love you, brother. I'm so glad to see you.
We were talking so much shit about him before. Oh my god.
No, we weren't. No, don't say that.
He's gonna have to rewatch the stream. Yeah, he's bigger than both of us now, so we have to kiss his ass now. We love you.
His soul could crush planets, so don't fuck off with that.
He's probably going to be mad because I'm like, I'm not a demonologist. And he was like, no, Thorne, no, you were supposed to lead us, not destroy us.
You were supposed to bring just balance to the force. That's hilarious.
Shit. Oh no,
But you know,
I love Behemoth, man.
I was dealing with a consultation earlier today that this lady, well, she's dealing with her ex trying to come back into her life, and he's an addict that still hasn't gotten his stuff together. He's still got unresolved things with his ex, and he's got all kinds of things going on. And he tells her, he goes, I just really miss your energy, and I miss being around you. And she says, well, of course you do. I'm amazing. I got my shit together. I meditate every day. I do yoga in the morning, and I do my rituals to my. She's Santeria, I think. So she has her Orisha she works with. She's like, I'm doing all the right stuff. So of course you would like my energy. I don't like yours. That's the issue. You're a drug addict. You got things that are pulling you down.
Oof.
So yeah, and it is kind of harsh. And I laughed at that, but I said, you know what? As your mentor in this moment, I'm really proud of you for acknowledging your greatness, for acknowledging like, hey, and your greatness isn't because you got the right color of skin or because you're a female or a male. Your greatness is because you're doing things on a regular basis to keep yourself on the track that you need to be on. Because that we are not only creatures of habit, we're creations of habit. That the things we do over and over are the things that actually build us from the bottom up.
Well, it's like what you think becomes what you do becomes a habit, what your habit is, that's your character. And I forget who said that, but it's very true. So you think the same thoughts all the time, they start becoming actions, right? So you have to be careful too. Like there's been talk in the chat about ego and stuff, and I'm one of the first people to tell you that your ego is not bad. I've never said that ego is bad.
I was so powerful, I eradicated my ego a long time ago.
Well, here's the deal though, you do have to. Like here's the thing. There is this interesting duality to the ego where it is not a bad thing, but it is a habitual thing, and habits can be bad. So ego by itself, there's nothing wrong with ego. In fact, as someone said, without ego, you wouldn't be here. You can't be an incarnate being without ego, whether that's a spiritual being without a body or an embodied incarnate being. Whatever you are, you must have ego to be a personal being.
Yeah.
But
it's a matter
you can transcend the ego and realize the ego is just an act. You can become consciousness watching the ego. That you can live in that state. I make it a practice to try to hit that state every day for a little while at the very least. And if possible, live that state for as long as I can in a day. What does that mean? Well, I can't easily describe it except realizing that I'm not this body. I am the awareness that is witnessing this. That's all I am. And when you put yourself in that perspective, you become that. You realize the ego is just something you're watching. You're not your ego. Your ego is just the thing you're watching. So the ego is not bad. But if you're watching ego and you're identifying with it exclusively as if that's all you are, that's when you're in hell. That's when you're trapped. That is when you need Gnostic Jesus to come along and kick you out of your fucking your bullshit beliefs, because you're not this person. You're not this body. This is a mask you're wearing. This is an act you're doing. This is a performance.
Well, so you and I have talked before about the headless meditation, or even just a daily observation. To my observation, don't have a head. The other people
don't have a head.
And so with that, there's an interesting thing that, and you kind of touched on this before as well. There is no self. There are no others, and there is no self other than what is created through your connection with others. And so it's by looking at these other people who have heads, they have personalities, they know what's going on. I don't. I'm just a headless person over here we're coming, and this is even as an infant, that you're looking to your mother and your father to get that sense of self. And that we never actually stop doing that. And I honestly think that that's a big thing that's behind my personal obsession with demons and with the entities and with evocation. In order to further refine and define myself, I'm seeking out these others. And mind you, what's the self that I'm defining? It's not real at all. It's an illusion that I'm creating as I go through this process.
You're picking one wave out of the ocean and saying that wave is real and that one is me and the other ones are not me. That's all you're doing. But you're the ocean. You're not the wave. It's a numberless one. It's consciousness isn't numbered. It's not 1, it's not 2, it's not 0, it's not infinity. Brahman is not numbered. It's not 1, it's not 2, it's not 0, it's not infinity. All number is within that eternity, that absolute. So this idea that, so for example, people will say, if everything is the same consciousness, just as keep it that simple way of asking, how come I don't know what you're thinking right now? How come D.H. Thorne is not experiencing what it's like to be E.A. Koetting right now? If there's only one consciousness, nobody said in the ancient mysticism, no one says there is one consciousness. They say there is just consciousness. They don't number it. Okay.
Well,
they don't.
I'll even argue that that is happening on every level. That in some way we're picking up what other people are feeling and thinking, and even what their biological responses are. But these are
you're seeing it second and third person, not first person. That's the only difference. You're still experiencing it, even if you can't perceive it because it's so minute or in a wavelength you can't easily see. It's still something that is reflecting as part of your experience. There's no question. It just might be too subtle. This is why in Indian metaphysics you have the subtle body, the subtle concepts. So you're completely correct on that. I do see E.A. Koetting's thoughts. I just don't recognize them because they're coming out as perspiration on his forehead, as stroking his chin, as these different things. Yeah. D.H. Thorne's thoughts are coming out mostly out of his mouth because I don't think much unless I'm talking. But other than that, they are coming out. So,
but not consciously, and
correct.
And when you do, well, you know, the mind state that you referred to is often called the observer mind state, the observer self. That you become not the thing that's doing all the things, but the observer of it. And in such, you do gain a much higher vantage of everything going on, especially yourself. One of the fun things to do is to become the observer when I'm upset, when I'm impatient, to actually like intentionally don't try to stop the emotion. Don't try to stop me being a spoiled little brat standing in line. Let that keep going on and then just observe it and go, isn't that so?
And that's where people get it twisted, is because they've been taught that being enlightened means you're never unhappy, you're never rude to people. No, being enlightened means you're in the world, not of it. That's what being enlightened is. It's being able to literally, like I did, endure the experience of my mother's death the way I did. And in those moments, there were moments where I kept thinking, this is beautiful, even though I was in agony. Some of this was the most emotional, traumatizing pain I've ever experienced, short of like the abuse era when I was young. It was up there, at least with that. And yet there were moments when this was happening when I'm like, this is so beautiful. I am so glad this is happening. I love this moment. Yes, it sucks, but this is beautiful. And people will hear that and go, what a horrible, callous person. No, you don't get it though. You're not understanding, because so many childhood traumas are coming to surface. I'm connecting with my mom. My wife and my mom are there's so many other things here that even the pain is beautiful. Even the agony is beautiful. It's not just the good part that's beautiful. And yes, it did knock me down. It gave me depression and anxiety things. It gave me some issues that I'm working through. There's no question. I just saw my mom die over 3 months. Even if I hate the bitch, it still was a horrible death, okay? Yeah. So it wasn't, and I did love her. So it's not like I didn't. So I'd hate to meet the person that, unless their parent just constantly, tortured them or something, who had a reasonable relationship with their parent, who is not caring when they die. Of course you're going to care when they die. It's going to mess you up. Yeah. But when it messes you up, why is it messing you up? Is it because you're resisting it? Mm-hmm. Is it because you're not going with it and letting it be what it is? Is it because it's not going according to plan? That pain is the ego going, fuck, I'm not God. I'm a puppet of God. And puppets don't, when they get that, they don't like that. But the reason they don't like it is because you think you're the puppet. When you realize you're not the puppet, it doesn't bother you. You're like, yeah, dance, little puppet, dance.
Well, and one of the things that you've said several times, and you told this to me once when I was in a pretty intense amount of pain over my resurfacing childhood trauma, was that you said, you're only suffering because you think you shouldn't.
Yep.
And that actually, I'm going to tell you, man, that I think this is the first time I've had a chance to tell you that was actually a transformative teaching that I needed, because what I did with that is I took that And I went and sat on my back porch, and I just felt everything I had to feel. I just thought all the things that
Just
all
let it
the things
happen.
I was trying to escape, all the things I was trying to change my reality, trying to say this isn't real, this isn't real. Well, now you got to face it, and you don't have to. No, you can keep living in hell. You can keep living in your own hell, or you can intentionally face your hell. And it's so one of the really interesting things with meditation, one of the meditation techniques I learned was, if you're ever feeling tension or stress in your body, don't ignore it, go straight to it. Pay as much attention to it as you can, and it evaporates. And this is true of anything. If you actually give it your attention, the monster you run away from becomes bigger. The monster you face becomes usually a child.
Yep. Or maybe a better way to put it, because you're not wrong, but maybe a better way to put it, because when you say you're facing it, that's still making it an other, or not even just an other, that's still making it a threat. So let's take it even one step further. Let's just be present with it. Let's just observe it.
Sit with it.
Sit with it. Let it cook.
That was my big task, was just
sit with it. Don't judge it, acknowledge it. In fact, this is something that I've been saying to my wife a lot lately, because there's a lot going on in her life. And I'm like, instead of judging, or instead of these people judging, they should acknowledge. So people will say, like, what's the difference? Like, you know, I can't ignore evil, or when something bad happens. Nobody's saying ignore it. Ignorance is not the solution. Ignorance isn't bliss. Actually, ignorance is hell. What makes bliss is when you can be aware, maximally aware, in the moment, and recognize you're just watching a show. You're just watching a dream. This is exactly like a dream, in the sense that you have a choice always, and you've chosen this for a reason. Nothing happens without reason. It's just that it's not caused the way you think it is. Everything happens for a reason. The reason is you chose it. But why did you choose it? Well, if there's a reason why you chose it, you're not God. So therefore, it's your free will that chose it, number one. But let's say that if there was a reason, what would that reason be? Well, this character has a more compelling and fulfilling story by enduring this and learning this and forgetting this and blah, 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 blah. It's the game of Leela, right? So
what's interesting is we do have it is a choose your own adventure story as you go, though, because there is
every moment.
Of entirely new dimensions forking off from every choice. But no, I do have to jump off with you in about 15 minutes. But before I do, the last topic I want to talk to you about is catastrophic disclosure. Okay, now this is a term that's used a lot in the UFO UAP community, but I'm also going to apply it to what's going on with the demons, what's going on with the angels, what's going on with the jinn, the archons, all of these things.
Maybe we should stop categorizing them. Maybe we should say they're all part of the same phenomenon. We don't know what that is yet fully, and just accept it.
Well, and it seems to be that whatever is holding them back is bursting at the seams. They're flying through like no other. Not just UAP, but the demons are coming through more strongly. The angels are coming.
I wish you had brought this up in the beginning, because this could be like a 4-hour freaking.
Okay. Well, tell me what you got on this. Just
no, you go first. You go first, man. You bring it up. It's your idea. Go ahead.
So I do think that this is a vision Lucifuge was showing me decades ago of our world and their world clicking together multiple times and then finally becoming one. There is the veil is being torn down. I do believe that there's an entire technological, fully developed civilization that's surrounding us that's just barely out of phase, and I think it's phasing in. I don't know why, but I also think this is part of the clock that the cabal is chasing and trying to beat this clock, because if they can beat the interdimensionals, then they may have won, but the interdimensionals are going to kick everybody's ass when they get here. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
So in speculatively speaking, based on everything that I've learned thus far, my opinion is simply this. Yes, we can have catastrophic disclosure. That would be, humanity's not ready for a fraction of what people like us know, let alone what some of the real deep divers know. Okay. Just the ancient aliens thing alone, even in the most mundane version of that concept, the average person isn't really ready for it. Even if they like it, they're not really ready for it to be real. But especially the fundamentalists of various religions, usually Abrahamic religions, of course, but it's not exclusive to them. So these people, maybe 25, 30% of, probably less, of the civilized world, and maybe like 40, 50, 60% of the third world aren't ready for this, but they will be, because the beings that we're talking about, they've made it very clear that they have a timetable that they're working in. Yes, they're flexible, but it is a timetable. And the other group, these people we talked about earlier, the Saturnian worshippers, who are just one of the heads of the Hydra, part of their role has been to corrupt and veil all of these things, make you either not believe in them or believe in fraudulent versions of them. This way you are unprepared and incapable of recognizing the truth when it happens. In fact, you're likely to resist it. This is one of the reasons why, again, the Goetia stuff, I will put it back up, but I got to figure out how I want to present it so it's presented in a way that takes that into account, because I recognize the blinds within that system now. Like I was going to say earlier, the Solomonic tradition is about building the Temple of Solomon. What is that? That's not a physical structure that you build in Jerusalem. It's you, brother. It's building the avatar. The Temple of Sol Un is what it is. It's the temple of.
So it's the Temple of Solomon is the individual, the human being incarnate. That is an important part of this. You got to be in the body, becoming the Merkaba. That when you as a physical being become the Merkaba, all the 72 demons then can flow through you. Yeah.
Correct. And of course, we mean that as daemons, which they corrupted into demons, which is one of the reasons why I'm also off that a little bit, because I'm looking now, what's the genuine article, please? Because this is, I know this comes from Johann Weier's work, where he was trying to catalog the various mental illnesses of people and gave them the names of popular demons, because that's what they were called by the crazy people. Blah, 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 blah. This is an egregore that's gotten out of control, in my opinion. It doesn't mean you can't work with it. It's still an egregore. It's still there, but it's not this whole idea that like, oh, these are demons living in hell because they rebelled against, Yahweh or some shit. Maybe in an interdimensional universe, sure. But barring that, and even with that, you still have to say, well, is that exactly what I'm connecting with? Or is that just no, more than likely, it's all the above. There's probably people just talking to egregores, people probably talking interdimensional beings, and people talking to pretenders and walk-ins and all kinds of other weird shit, and their own psyche. There's so many different layers to this possibility. So rather than say like objectively what it is, I let people say subjectively, this is what I think it is. And then I have a program for either one of those possible. If you think it's your higher self in the form of lucifuge, then there's a way to work with that way. If you think it's a being from another plane or dimension, there's a way to work with that too. So it's not that you can't, it's also that I kind of prefer a certain perspective, because, again, we have been indoctrinated with a whole fuck ton of blinds and lies over the years about what magic, sorcery is, all of these things. There was people saying before, someone, I forget who it was, but they said, well, magic is causing change in the world or whatever, basically quoting Crowley. It's like you're not causing change in anything, because that makes, you're assuming a physical reality is real, and that's your first mistake. You're choosing a different manifestation to experience, but beside the point. So catastrophic disclosure would be the whole enchilada coming out all at once. That's just as bad as keeping it private right now. Yes, I'm all for truth. Don't get me wrong. Philosophically, I'm basically a Luciferian libertarian. I want the truth out because I can handle it. Even if I can't, I'd rather be impaled upon the truth and bleed out from the truth than the lies. I can't stand the lies anymore. Kill me with the truth then. I don't care. If it turns out non-duality is wrong and I've been misled and it's really okay, I guess that's the truth, but I'd rather have that. So now I know what to do with it. So me personally, you personally, a lot of people we know would probably be cool with the whole truth. But humanity as a civilization, because of the damage done by these people corrupting us with religion and dogmatic thinking and now modern scientism and all this, we can't just have it.
It's those very systems of control that have the most to risk too. They have the most to lose, because they have to basically come out and say, oh, we've been lying to you and hypnotizing you and making you believe a reality that's not true. Here's the real reality. Of course, those are not the systems of control that will put this out.
No.
I think
soft disclosure is happening. So Rogan, in my opinion, I think he's probably either a gray hat or a white hat. who's been put up to being part of the soft disclosure program.
Yeah.
I think that Terrence Howard was, yes, he's probably got an IQ higher than mine, at least close to mine. And there's people with, like that guy with 200 IQ will blow the doors off me with IQ. By the way, IQ doesn't, it's not a linear measurement. It's like baud rate. That's all it really, if you're a stupid person in a long enough timeline, you can figure out the same shit that it takes me, but it might take me a few years less. That's the difference, in my opinion. So it's not that intelligence is the end all be all. It's just that my point that I'm trying to make, though, is that this guy, I think Terrence is probably a soft disclosure agent. He's probably been given permission or something. He's probably been fed some of this, figured it out, etc. He's not working in a vacuum, just like you and I don't work in a complete vacuum. We have friends, we have fans, we have people feeding us stuff. The same thing is true for this, but here's an angle that people don't realize. What we think of as the organic interplay of different political, social groups, and the world that we see as this real organic front page reality that we see, that's total bullshit. There is a hidden hand. There are hidden masters running everything, and they're at war. Did so in about 2015, 2016. That's why everything has gone to shit and gone crazy. That's why Trump happened. Trump was their closer for the American part of the program. Who is doing this? That's the big question. There are some people who believe that it's just this mundane group of patriots that are white hats, and it's an international movement to stop this shit. They know enough that, fine. There's also a group of people who think it's literally Germans from World War II who took over Antarctica, and they're trying to defeat the same enemy they were fighting in World War II, which is not the Jews. It's the Zionist banking cartels. It's that head of the Hydra is one of their big ones. Yes, but it's not because they're Jewish or something. That's the red herring, right? That's the misdirection, so that you can't side with them. Not that I would, because the Nazis were puppets too, by the way, puppets of the Zionist.
We don't like bankers. Nazis. We do not like Nazis.
No, we do not like Nazis, and we probably shouldn't like anyone that was a Nazi. It's not the Nazis, but the German people. I can't speak specifically because I don't know. I'm only speculating based on limited information that I have. So I am not, like I said, not racist. I am not anti-Semitic. And, well, you kind of, let's not touch that on YouTube. Let's put that over there. That's a Rumble conversation. I am not
the whole phrase. Then we got to go into etymology of what these
yes,
words
we got to go to etymology. We got to go through genealogy. We got to figure out who the Amorites were. We got to go to the Khazarians. So anyway, I'm not anti-Semitic, okay, in the slightest. Actually, I'm pro-Semitic in a lot of ways. But no, what my point is that just like in America, you have different factions that are patriots, not patriots, corrupt, globalists. Germany, World War II, America, World War II, France, England, all these countries had the same thing. They all had a deep state. They all had white hats. They all had black hats. So who was controlling what? We're taught that America was the good guys. No, America was ultimately what the banksters sided with, especially when certain things didn't go the way they wanted with Germany. There's a breakaway civilization that gave them the middle finger and said, fuck you, we're not playing this game with you. Doesn't make them good guys, by the way. It just means that they are not them. So this breakaway civilization goes to Antarctica. They work with the beings that live in a very advanced subterranean civilization there. You call it Agartha. It's global. Is Shambhala, Lemuria. All these different cultures are real. There is an underworld. There's no question. Every myth has it. And every myth, when you put it together, it sounds exactly like the origin of probably where Eden was probably underground. It's probably where certain ethnic groups come from. There's probably multiple Edens, and they're all subterranean, right? So think Planet of the Apes. Remember the bomb people from Planet of the Apes in the second one? That's them. Because when the surface of this earth was destroyed, they said, fuck it, we're going to stay down here. We're going to live in this beautiful, this manicured, cultivated environment underground where we have all the comforts of the upper world, but none of the risks, none of the dangers. So they live down there.
That's probably more likely on planets is to have subterranean. The fact
Mars,
that we're
the moon, they're all like that.
yeah,
They're all
to be
Venus.
completely exposed is actually kind of silly.
It is silly. It's fun for a vacation. Where do you think white people come from? People, I'm not being racist. Where do you think they come from? They don't come from the sunlit world of Africa. Are you high? No, they come from subterranean caverns and shit. Okay, pasty ass white people. We don't come from the sun places. We come from the dark. We're like the dwarves or something. Okay, I'm being funny by that. I'm exaggerating a bunch, but the principle is probably true. There's probably truth to it. Subterranean aquatic apes. What we developed, you know.
But in every system, you look at every ancient map, and it does show Agartha, the underworld, openings to the caverns that go forever underneath. So yeah. So this is, and again, that is the things that are hidden are being brought to the light. There are things.
Why do you think Antarctica is suddenly all over social media and the news? All of a sudden, it's all Antarctica this, Antarctica that.
What do you think?
So soft disclosure.
What do you think that radar disclosure or that radar anomaly was coming from Antarctica? Did you see that?
You mean the waves in the ocean? It's not radar. Yeah, it's I think it just happened again, actually. Some people say it's a weather weapon thing. Like some people think that they're heating up the mid to southern Atlantic Ocean with this to create a crazier hurricane season. That's what some people think. Other people think that there is a fight between the Antarctic colonies, whatever they are, and the rest of and that's like some kind of battle ticket, like they're using wave weapons at each tectonic weapons. Who the fuck knows? So there's a lot of speculation. It's definitely happening, whatever it is. They say it's a glitch. I don't buy it. I think it's really happening, whatever that is. But we'll see. And yes, Antar Dracona said white comes from Seven Sisters of Pleiades. Absolutely. Humans are common throughout the galaxy, if not the universe. I believe that humans are a model. We're a designed GMO, okay? Yes, humans on this planet are a specific version, but humanity is a common... In fact, humanoids are probably just like... All right, here's a little known fact. Why does almost all life in the ocean turn into crabs on a long enough timeline? Look it up. There's not one species of crab. There's not one kingdom of crab. Crabs, multiple different on the family tree of life turned into crabs separately. It's not they became a crab and then split. They all turn into crabs. Well, what if as you reach a certain threshold of evolution for adaptation for intelligence, and you just naturally become a type of hominid, a type of humanoid? What if human beings, bipedal, you know, the kind of thing, what if that's common because it's just the most suitable form for a certain kind of being? That is very likely. Well, in fact, yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, that's exactly actually what Maimon told me at one point when he was laying out civilization and whatnot to me is that it's important that you have this form. And with the crab thing, because crabs are usually, you know, what do you call it, amphibious. They can go. That's the
little bit of both. Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty much the perfect amphibious form. And I don't know that we're in our perfect form, but I think that we're on our way to it. I honestly hope that we turn out like the engineers from Aliens, where we're giant, bald, fucking like blue white people.
Well,
awesome.
That's the thing. I mean, you have the whole starseed movement, of which, you know, I have reason to believe I'm one because of things when I was a kid. Doesn't mean I am. It just means I could see, you know, if you brought the starseed question to me 30 years ago, I'd be like, oh, fuck yeah, I'm half dragon, I'm half Pleiadian, no question, and I might even have some of the feline race in me, whatever. So sure, I would have been all aboard with that. And in a similar thing, look at our ancient gods. That we have a lot of cat-headed, bird-headed. Was that symbolic or was it literal, or was it a little bit of both? You know, we don't know. We can't know. We weren't there. But it's reasonable to assume it's possible, especially in a big enough universe. Who's to say? Let's say Terrence Howard is right. Let's say that reality is an emergent phenomenon of counter space. In other words, 0 point. In other words, consciousness. And this bubble of space-time, this etheric field, every point in that etheric field is a point which can become like a seed for matter to form. So as the ether bubbles up and becomes these bubbles of expansive magnetism, and the contractive electricity becomes the matter, right, of the stars and everything else. What if the universe is more than a few billion years old? What if it is trillions, like he suggests, and that matter coalesces and condenses out of the ether in the way that he describes? Let's use that as a possible model, just for the fuck of it. Mm-hmm. If that's the case, and even if reality is only 13.5 billion years old, I mean, the universe, as far as we know, let's pretend even that's the case. That's still plenty of time in a big enough universe for this planet to be seeded with life in a way where the birds are the seeds of this avian species, and the canines are this, and blah, 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 blah. It's entirely possible that we are just a zoo or a genetic library. Maybe they've used this planet as a genetic library to deposit their seed races, so that when they want to have a developing civilization, when they don't want to develop or create another planet or terraform it, they don't have to start from scratch. They can just scoop up somewhere in the universe. The DNA is safely stored as life forms evolving and living. They can just scoop it up and transplant it, and we're just a big zoo experiment. It's possible that too.
So this Earth is Noah's Ark. That's actually really cool to think about. This Earth is Noah's Ark. Well, and then also, like, when people have encounters and abductions and stuff like that, what are the creatures we see? We see ones that look like insects, ones that look like reptiles.
Yep. Why do we only see what we recognize? Is that because we're anthropomorphizing? Is that because we're what's the other one where you think everything is humanoid? Anyway, are we doing that? Are we externalizing our humanity and projecting it onto things and saying, because we don't, like, can you imagine an organism that doesn't exist on this planet in some way? I challenge anyone. So someone will, like, if I said to somebody, create the most alien organism you can imagine, I guarantee you on Earth there's something just like that.
Everyone's going to come up with an octopus. Everyone comes up with an octopus.
It's going to be slime mold. It's going to be octopus. It's going to be
amoebas.
It's going to be some amalgamation of a cat and a dog. Oh, look, you just made. Meanwhile, and I'm not just talking about today. I mean, look through the archaeological records. There isn't an organism that you can imagine that something like it enough, like you would say, oh, that's a version of it, didn't exist. So is it that we just can't imagine? Or is it that this planet has been a repository for different entities, organisms, and it's just a big system of it? Maybe, or maybe this is just all the ways that life can possibly express itself under these conditions. Maybe if we had a water planet, there would be something else. Or maybe it would just be crabs all the way fucking down, like that's possible too. So we don't.
But brother, I have got to go.
I got you, brother.
I got my phone beeping, reminding me I've got a ritual I've got to do for a client before I go to bed.
Okay.
So I've got.
Let me put in the chat. Yeah, I'm gonna let you go. Let me put in the chat your links that you gave me, because that's only fair.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and let me just verbalize them here. Everybody can check me out at becomealiving.god.com. Sign up for my newsletter. Check out all my courses, books, products there. Also, check me out on Odyssey. That's odyssee.com/@EA Koetting. And then over at TikTok, EA Koetting. TikTok is throttling the fuck out of me, by the way.
I believe it. No, I would get off of that platform. Unless something.
At first, it was great. At first, they were throwing me all kinds of views, and it was awesome. As soon as I started doing live rituals, that's when they had issues. They're like, really? We can't have magic and real power going on. So, thanks, brother. It's been awesome chatting with you.
Okay. All right, brother. Yeah, no, it's been great. And hopefully we'll get you on again real soon. And if not, no worries either. I know we both have that same malfunction. That's also a feature.
Get me down and spit in my face and I'll be here.
I'll be here anyway, man, because fuck it, why not?
All right, brother. You have a good one. We'll talk soon.
All right, man. Take care, brother. All right, bye. I'll stick around for a little bit longer. Let me close this out. Here, guys. Hold on. Oop, that's that. Close that. And go solo. There we go. All right. So I'm going to stick around for just a few more minutes, guys. But I really, if EA does catch this on the flip side, I appreciate him coming down. And let me repost those links actually again. You know, I really am annoyed because this was supposed to be a Rumble exclusive, and they did something again where when I tried to get the stream going, some setting changed and it no longer worked. And we had a terrible time. So I do apologize for everybody who was excited about that. Let's see. I think that link is right. No, it's still screwed it up. Let me fix it again. There we go. Cut that out. Paste it and do it again. There we go. All right. Yeah. What's up, Noella M? If you're new to the channel, please feel free to subscribe. I'm always a little bit mystical and esoteric. That's actually my focus. Magic is a great, fun practice, but it's also kind of, I don't know. I like getting more fundamental than the practices. I think the practices are great, but they lead to the fundamental, and I like the fundamental. So yeah. So for those of you who don't know, that was the illustrious E.A. Koetting. And he and I have been friends for a few years now, and he's a good guy. Excuse me, cat. What do you want? Hello. My cat is under my feet, causing me problems. So for the remainder of the time, I think I'll stay on for like another half hour or so. So if you guys want to ask me specific questions, give me some talking points to talk about, that would be great, because I don't have anything more in mind, because EA and I had a good time talking. So let's see. I'm going to get up and get a drink. That'll clear my mind. So feel free to give me chat questions now. I will respond to them. For those of you who don't know, if you put them in all caps, I am more likely to see them and respond to them. If you at me, same thing. And of course, a super chat will take you to the top of the line, but you don't feel like you have to. That's just if you want to reward me for being a good host. Yeah, Katie, come in. Come on. Okay, I am back. Let's see. Oh, no chats. What the hell? There's 33 people here and no questions. Let's see. F. Kitty says it could be some outside interference from some three-letter agency or group. Other Trailblazers experience interrupt as well. There are times actually that I do believe that's what's happening. Not this particular case. I am pretty sure that I just didn't get it set up right. They changed something with the back end a little bit again, and my settings changed again. And part of that was also on my streaming software. So because my streaming software got updated, and because they changed the way Rumble did things on the back end, I had this fixed. It was working the last stream I did on Rumble, and then now it's not working right. So they did release a new interface that without streaming software. I will try that one of these nights on Rumble, because I would like to switch to Rumble as my flagship platform. I really would, because I am sick of Google and YouTube. I can't stand their bullshit anymore. I can't stand being unable to talk about certain things without getting shadow banned, or worse. I've had worse than shadow bannings happen. I even think that YouTube and other social media platforms contact Amazon, because my book sales fell off a cliff the moment I got a little bit controversial in my opinions on politics. It was like as soon as I said anything positive about Trump at all, suddenly I was getting death threats, and all of my content was getting like less views, and my books weren't selling as much. It's like all of a sudden I just got fucked. It was amazing. Okay. Odo says DH and ER are the most consistent with lives. Super cool. I like doing lives more than videos these days, because by the time I like get the idea for a video, I've usually already talked about it in a live stream, or I've got bored of it, so I don't make a video out of it. So I usually save stuff for live streams, but yeah. Okay, so if you guys have any esoteric, mystical, or magical questions for me personally, now would be a good time. I do wish EA was still here, but he, yeah. That's true, Black Atrium. I got literal death threats the moment that I admitted to who I voted for in 2020. I had one person literally threatening to rape my wife and kill me. It's quite amazing. Well, not kill me. They wanted to fight me, and then yeah, all kinds, like, it's just, and I did get death threats from other people. It's just, people are nuts, and they're sick, and they're demented, and that's just how it is. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Robert Sepper is pretty good. That's not to say that I endorse every last thing the man says, but I do endorse his content generally. Even when I disagree with parts of it, I agree with the direction that he comes from in many cases, because I don't always know better. I'm not an anthropologist, for one thing. But the only thing that I really will say, like him personally, I don't know what I think of him personally, but his content is very good. And some of his last videos I consider required viewing, like the hidden history of Zionism, the hidden history of communism, what was it? The one with Antarctica. Some of the best videos he's done were like in the last year. It's like he was presenting a cohesive narrative for the first time in a while, and it came out very well. A lot of it seems to align with many of the things that I know and believe before I even got introduced to him. And then he took some of those things further. Yes, some of it's very controversial. Yes, some of it is debunked by society, but that doesn't mean it's actually debunked, because the debunkers, of course, are not sincere. They are paid debunkers most of the time. So, yeah. Let's see. Someone asked a question. Who was it? Where'd it go? I saw a question. They said, what? Oh, how do you define the word monad is what you meant to say, not work. Monad, if you Google it, that refers to, it depends on which philosopher you're talking about. You have Kant, who spoke about the monad. The monad is basically a word that you could use to mean source. It could mean consciousness. It could mean Brahman. It could mean Atman. But it basically, monad refers to a singularity, but not in the sense of number. It's a singularity in an absolute sense. It's singularness. It is oneness. It is union. It is the center. It is the source. It is the prime mover. It is the first cause. It is any of those terms that points back to the ultimate singularity at the beginning and end of time. Correct metaphysics, in my opinion, begins with this understanding that there is a what I call a null space singularity, or a dimensionless singularity, that is both the source, witness, and receiver, or shall we say salt, sulfur, mercury, for all that exists. It is the beginning, the expression of, and the end of all. So think of it like the Big Bang, which of course some people would argue didn't happen, but let's say the Big Bang did happen. Think of that Big Bang as that singularity, right? But it is a singularity in time, actually, not in space. This is one of the things that people don't quite get, is that in the manifestation of the different tripartite planes of manifest reality, you have the source, which transcends everything. Then you have what most people call the astral, but that's really the spiritual or mental. That's the logos and the nous. That's the word, or the law, or the rules, or the paradigm, the resonance frequency, whatever you like, that serves as the modality. I'm using big words because it's the only way to do it. The modality of expression for the nous, which is the informational or ideal essence of things. Then that manifests as something perceivable, in this case, the material world, but it could also be a dream world or the astral or whatever. So it's basically from gross to subtle, and you can sort of break that into three parts. So you have the source, which is like the monad or Brahman or whatever. Then you have the astral or mental or dream or whatever. You have that. Then you have the physical, which is really just the same thing, but limited by choice, limited to a certain paradigm. So the absolute is all possibility. That's the initial singularity. This becomes all the potential of that That's the astral, right? That's the potential, the Akashic record, if you will, the pleroma, if you will. These are all words that if you look them up, they're sort of saying the same thing. They're different cultures' words for the same concepts. Then the material world is just the condensate of that, but the condensate of that only condenses out of that because you are limiting, you're bounding infinity. So like imagine the source is an infinite number line in which any number can exist in an infinite number line. Literally any number you could ever want, including a number that would, if you put it in a computer, would output a computer program that simulates the entire universe. That exists in an infinite number line. But if you put that infinite number line into a computer, no universe is going to pop out because it's too much. The computer can't handle that. So what do? You cut a piece of it out, put it through an algorithm in your computer, and that outputs the universe. The same idea is you have the source, which is all of this potential. Then you have minds, which are like a kind of monad in themselves because they're a microcosmic monad. You have minds, which then perceive that potential, limit it, bound it through certain cognitive or psychic rules. This gets you to an astral state, because I'm kind of going a little far here into the weeds, but I'm actually describing Neoplatonism. These are emanative concepts. You have the source that emanates all these potentials, and it also emanates souls or minds or sparks or whatever that go through that potential, experience that potential, and come back to source. So the monad is that source. The monad is that start, but it is also the end of the journey. You could also think of it in that ethereal etherism model with the toroidal fields, where the center of that toroid, the origination point of that toroid, is a singularity with no dimensions. And it emerges out of the vortex and comes back into itself if you're putting it in 3 dimensions. So create a 3-dimensional toroid. I'm kind of defining that's the monad. It is an emanation which returns to the source. These are just different models, though. One of the things that people get hung up on is they reify models and treat the models as if they're real. They're just a map. They're just a map of what is. They're not what is. Okay. Someone brought up Kabbalah. Black Atrium says Jewish Kabbalah explains all this. There is truth in Jewish Kabbalah that many LHP and pagan people reject because of their social identity, because of the religion. Here's the thing: Kabbalah predates Abrahamism by a long shot. Real Kabbalah goes back to beyond Egypt, probably to Atlantis. It probably looked very different, though. The tree of life that we have today probably isn't what they would have agreed to. The tree of life that they had then was probably a little different, okay? But it had the same or similar pattern. The question is, how much was it changed over time? Should it be as complex? Should it have all these different pathways and whatnot? I don't know, because that's not my forte. I'm not a Kabbalist. I'm just familiar with it. You're welcome, Mick. And it depends on what your definition of oversoul is. I mean, here's the problem. Everyone's talking about the same thing, but with a slightly nuanced, different perspective. And they're all right and they're all wrong. And you can't just go, oh, this one tradition has it right and everybody else has it wrong. You know, I'm gonna take these off. I don't need these, actually. I just realized I'm yelling because I'm wearing my headphones. None of these traditions are in themselves right, and none of them in themselves are wrong. They are all valid perspectives of the same truth. What makes them problematic is when they become dogmatic religions, which take everything in that superficial way and treat it literally. You know, there's a lot of examples I could draw upon from the Bible, but if you read the Bible, it's pretty obvious that a lot of it's supposed to be not just metaphor, not just allegory, but esoteric, symbolically valid things. When you understand, for example, the ichthyios fish, the Jesus fish, that's the Vesca piscis, guys. You know what that is, right? So all of these things are brought into the lore of the religion, and they're in your face And if you just do a little bit of study of esoteric stuff, you do read a little Rosicrucian stuff, read a little Masonic stuff, read a little Solomonic stuff, just a dab will do you. And you'll realize that the Bible is a multi-dimensional text. What I mean by that is there are many different layers of truth to it, not just the superficial layer where it's like a myth story that you're supposed to believe in. That's actually the least true part of it because it's so corrupted by what they needed it to be. But it points to the truth. For example, Elohim is plural, and it means the same thing as Anunnaki. Okay, you're talking about the powerful ones. You're talking about the gods. You're talking about the Anunnaki weren't just one species of alien, by the way. They were probably all of them. There's probably a bunch of them. Think of like a superhero movie, right? Think of it like that. A bunch of different entities coming here. It probably wasn't just one group. It was probably a whole group of them. It was probably, humanoids, Pleiadians, reptilians, draconians. It's probably a whole bunch of different things, right? But there were certain ones that had special interest in us that were more related to us that we thought of as our gods, right? So there is that likely possibility. Let's see. Yeah, so it really depends on which tradition you want to use as your operating system. What I don't recommend is picking one and saying that one exclusively is right. That's dogmatism. Don't do that. Bunch of people putting some chats in. Let me see if there's anything here for me to comment on. Affirmations and Incantations says, hey, DH, I just wanted to say I love your work. My favorite video is your reading of Nyarlathotep or Nyarlathotep. Depends on how you like to say it. I like to make it Nyarlathotep because Hotep should be its own not word, but I guess it's a word. Basically means, what is it, peaceful one or something like that? You should do more. I find they are great for meditation. I actually had, and I'm probably going to restore them at some point. I had some, I do have some binaural beats. I even have some music that nobody knows about. It's all over the channel, but people don't usually find it. I do have some music. I do have some binaural beats, and I do have some meditations for the chakras. But I also had some mantras and shall we say meditation music for different entities like Lucifer and certain goetic entities. I took a lot of those down temporarily because I'm still trying to figure out how I want to present all that again. When I took it down, it was one of those situations where I was going through the death of my mom, so I wasn't in my normal headspace. And I was learning about some things that I wasn't comfortable about because I don't want to give you guys misinformation. And I don't want to present it to you guys in a way that might lead you down a path you can't come out of. And now those videos wouldn't have done that, by the way. That wasn't my worry. But they don't necessarily represent the accurate truth. And I want to make sure that people understand that this is old information. Those old Demon in Review videos are from like 2018, 19, and part of 2020. I have learned a lot more since then. And so some of the things that I say back then no longer fit what I think. But that doesn't give me a right to take them down because a lot of you guys enjoyed that stuff and they are still useful in their own way. So I will be putting them back up. I just want to organize them in a way so that they're sort of like old Thorne's knowledge, new Thorne's knowledge. This way people can still access it and get something out of it and know that this isn't necessarily what I endorse, even the way I thought it was. I don't necessarily endorse. So I need to figure out how I want to do that. And maybe it just means putting it in a playlist and keeping it separated, but I want to make it so that people, when they encounter that content, they encounter that disclaimer first. And I could probably do that by putting a pop-up or something, but I have to feel it out. I don't feel like that's right either. And if I'm being brutally honest with you guys, a big part of me has wanted to just reboot and start over, just delete my entire channel, delete my social media, come up with a completely different shtick, People would know who I am and I would deny. Be like, no, I'm not DH Thorne. I'm HD Buttercup. Yeah, HD Buttercup. That's my new name. Because I'm kind of tired, you know, I call it ADHD, call it being inconsistent. I'm kind of tired of being this character. I'm kind of tired of some of these themes, and I kind of want to move into other things that I'm interested in. So there is a piece of that in there too. I'm kind of like, I don't want to be typecast anymore as that guy. And so that is a piece of it. But for those of you who are annoyed that I took him down, I will put him back. I just need some time to think about how I want to do that. They're not actually gone, they're just unlisted. So they are there. You can actually access them if you have the links, but only if you have the links because they're unlisted. So affirmations and incantations ask, my question is in relation to creating a sustainable practice of magic. I find myself doing rituals that are spontaneous and little effect, which is ironic because for me, spontaneous works a lot better. How can I bring more power to my rituals? We're all different. What works for me won't necessarily work for you. I have found that I am more aligned or resonant with a kind of Taoist, lazy approach to everything. I don't like to force things. I would rather find the easiest path through the mountains and take that, which actually means not fighting things. It means not necessarily planning and pushing on things. So what I will do is I will do magic and practice when I feel called to do them. Now, you could argue that that's because I have ADHD and I don't regulate my intentions very well. That you could argue that's the only reason I feel that way. Because I found that if I pre-plan a ritual, or if I say I'm going to do a ritual on this day, there's a better than 50-50 chance that I'm going to hate it. Like when I'm doing it, I'm going to feel totally out of whack. It's not going to feel right. I'm not going to feel attuned to it, resonant with it. I'm going to feel like I'm just going through motions, reading from a script. It's not going to feel like magic to me. Do you know when it feels like magic to me? When I don't know I'm going to do it. Or when I think tonight I'm going to do a ritual, but I don't know what it's going to be. Or whatever. It's got to be short notice and it's got to be intuitive and inspired. I've got to go with the flow. So in a way, you're asking the wrong guy, because my advice to you would actually be to continue doing that, would be to just relax and keep being spontaneous with it, because it probably is working. You just don't recognize it because you're in an egoistic state where you think you're supposed to make the world conform to your will, when in reality, the world cannot be any other way. It's already a manifestation of your higher self's intentions. That's already the case. You don't have to make it happen. So what I would suggest, actually, instead of thinking about doing more externally, like rituals, how can you go more internal with your practice? I would tell you, especially since I come from a more Eastern path perspective, not that I practiced Eastern Tantra or yoga or anything, it's just that's the philosophy that I prefer. And for some reason, it looks like the stream is still showing EA. Actually, let me refresh the stream. Actually, that's pretty weird. There we go. What I would suggest is getting more internal, learning a very good meditative art, learning to do some form of yoga, not posture yoga. That's fine, but that's not yoga. So I'm talking about like yoga, like spiritual yoga, or tantra, or kundalini is fantastic. Do things like that and develop a realization of true gnosis. So what I have discovered is that if you try to attain siddhi or psychic powers or magical abilities or miraculous abilities, if you try to attain those first, it is possible, but you're taking not only the long way around, you're actually fucking yourself, because it's not about that. If you attain true gnosis, true mystical gnosis, non-dual realization, if you reach a deep state of samadhi, if you, whatever it is for you, whatever your language says it is, if you get that deep state of gnosis first, siddhi will just spontaneously begin to appear as needed. They're no longer a thing you have to quest for. Now, that doesn't mean you have control over them necessarily. What you have to realize is, I don't say that reality is like a dream just as a comparison. It's not just a metaphor. Reality is like a dream, but it's a dream in the mind of the ultimate. It's a dream in the mind of the divine, which you are that divinity, but you have incarnated, you have reduced yourself. You've limited yourself to this one persona within that divine being. But you are ultimately that divine being, and so everything that occurs is your choice. You are the higher self manifesting everything. The problem is, if you identify exclusively with the ego, not simply enjoy the ego as part of what you do, if you become the ego, you want to control that process instead of realizing you are already doing it. Now, when I say it's like a dream, it's not just a metaphor. Think about how a dream is. Are you not in control of every dream you've ever had? Of course you are. There isn't a single, is there someone else in your mind when you're dreaming? Is someone else making your dreams? No. But yet dreams often go against our supposed will, do they not? Of course they do. Have you never had a nightmare that you didn't want to have? Of course you have. So by that kind of reasoning, you have to realize that your waking world is no different. This is just another part of a dream. This is just another kind of dream. It's not exactly like a sleeping dream. No, there is a difference, but it's a difference without a real distinction. There's the personal subjective nightly dream, and then there's the material dream, then there's the astral dream, and blah, 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 and probably stuff I can't imagine dream. When you die, it's probably not like, oh, I'm dead. It's probably like just starting a different dream. It's like waking up from one state into another. It's like going from one dream to another, or one dreaming state to a different dreaming state. It's like going from a sleeping dream to a waking dream, or a lucid dream. It's like going from a nightmare to a lucid dream. It's not like you're dead, that's it. It's not like you're dead and like, oh, I'm a spirit now. No, you've always been, it's the same thing. It doesn't change that black and white of a change. It's obviously a difference. You will go, oh, fuck. Because everybody who's reported on this, like with near-death experiences and whatnot, even people who've had psychedelic experiences and compare them to near-death, they're not the same. The near-death experience feels more real than the waking world. It feels more real. The only way that would be is if you're waking up into a less dream. Because when you're sleeping and you're dreaming, you think that's real. But when you wake up, you go, oh, this is way more real than the dream was, right? It's no different than that. That's what I'm anticipating. When you die, it's probably like waking up from one dream into another dream that you think isn't one. It's probably a lot like that, except now you've got the memory of the one thing changing over and you go, maybe this is too. Maybe. We'll see. I don't know yet. I like that too, Odo. It's like okay, now you can play as Luigi. Yes, you know, it's all the same clay. So, but yeah, affirmative incantations. That's my advice to you, is try going internal for a while. If you haven't. If you have, then keep going. But my advice to you is focus on the mystical, the gnosis. Try to get the big gnosis. Try to get the big awakening. Try to realize what you are, not just in an intellectual way. Try to know what you are. You know, it's one thing to be convinced of non-duality, but that's a very lesser form of liberation. That doesn't really amount to much. It just becomes another belief system. What you need to do is take that belief, use that as a tool to wake up to the truth. Test that belief. So if you believe in non-duality, you're not there yet. I want you to challenge that belief, and I want you to both test it and try to prove it at the same time. Try to challenge it and prove it. Do the practices. Try to realize that your consciousness and that anything you think you are in the affirmative sense that's physical or even ideal is just an appearance that you're taking. It's not what you are, it's how you look or how you are experiencing yourself. When you have that realization, siddhi or magic powers or sorcery becomes second nature. It just does. It's like, do you have to tell your hand how to move? Do you have to look at your hand and go, flex that finger now, do this now? No, you just do it. Well, when you realize that you are consciousness, that you are Brahman, you don't have to go, how do I do intuitive prediction? How do I get divination power? You don't need that. At most, you just might need a hint, like a thing to do, just like a medium to do it through. Yeah, use a pendulum. Yeah, just sit in a dark room and try not to think, and the first thing that comes to your mind. Yeah, do remote viewing. Yeah, these are just techniques, but that's not what makes it possible. In fact, you can do all the techniques perfectly and have it never work. Just like the same way you can think to your finger, bend finger, and it doesn't bend. Like bend finger, bend, it's not bending, but I can bend it. In the same exact way, that's how Siddhi work. You don't make Siddhi happen. You just do them. I don't know if that's making sense, but that is how it is. It's spontaneous. It's intuitive. It's something you just know how to do. And it may not be on command, just like your heart doesn't beat on command. Or just like a sneeze doesn't, you can cause a sneeze, but usually sneezes sneak up on you, right? Siddhi are like that, especially in the beginning. You don't have a lot of control over it until you learn, like, hey, if I look at the sun, I sneeze. Similarly, if I quiet my mind and ask consciousness a question, answers come. But is that how you get the answers? No. Because someone who doesn't know what consciousness is, doesn't know how to quiet themselves, it won't work. You can ask yourself all day long, what's the future going to be, and get nothing. But when you have achieved a significant level of gnosis, when you have actually got your realization of what you are, you don't need a ritual. You don't need a spell. You don't need anything. They are options. They are techniques. They are helpers. They're like using a compass and a ruler to draw, but you don't need them. They just come naturally to you. I can't tell you how many times I have had the most effective sorcery imaginable just by declaring something, just by questioning something, just by thinking, hey, wouldn't it be cool if? Some of the most powerful results I've ever gotten were just from that, and I could tell that they were happening. One of the most potent was in 2019, I think it was. I turned to my wife one day while watching an EA Koetting video. I said, wouldn't it be some shit if one day I ended up talking in video streams with them, working with them, having them on my show? Wouldn't that be some shit? I had 300 subscribers. And when I said that, when it left my mouth parts, I saw it left, and I was like, I just cast it. I felt it come true. I got a chill down my spine. So did my wife. And lo and behold, EA Koetting comes on my shows. I'm a published author. Blah 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 blah. Did I cause it or predict it? And this is why I become the Maelstrom. I tell you, when you reach a high enough level of magic, you can't tell the difference between something you're causing and predicting, because they're the same thing. There's actually no difference. If you are God, and I don't mean personal God, I mean if you are the divine, then by definition, everything you predict is also a thing that will happen. It's a cause. In other words, if you say this could happen, that means it will. It may not happen to you as this incarnate being, but somewhere it's happening. But beyond that, when the divine predicts, when there is prophecy, prophecy means it's already happened. It's as good as done. Magic is like prophecy. Think of magic as intentional prophecy. Think of magic, and let me refine my statements. Magic is actually yoga. Sorcery is siddhi. Sorcery is what we're talking about when you're trying to cause change in the world, or think you are. So if you want to change the world, treat it like prophecy. But know the difference between something that's wishful thinking prophecy and something that's legit prophecy. See what I mean? You can't do it on purpose. You can't do it by planning. You can't say, I'm going to do magic now. Magic is always happening. You can only be aware of it in the now. You can only say, now I'm going to be aware of the magic I'm doing. And this is the difference between what I teach and what most Western occultists teach, because I'm not teaching you magic as a tool, because that's not how it works. Anyone who tells you that doesn't mean that what they tell you, like, they're bad people or they're lying to you. If EA was sitting here right now and said, well, I think magic causes things, I'd say, I think you're wrong, respectfully. But I do think you're wrong, because I have a perspective of metaphysics that's my forte, that's my foundation. I didn't come to this by practices and faiths. These are things that are self-realized. They are things that, through meditation, through various just being alone with my thoughts, contemplating, getting out of my own way, I had realizations. Those realizations eventually led to Gnostic states of consciousness, in which case I understand things in ways other people don't now. I have knowledge other people don't have. That doesn't mean I'm right about everything. It just means that I have a perspective that's a little bit more appropriate for understanding. And that's all it means. I didn't do anything. I didn't accomplish anything, and I am not special. I just woke up. I just had a lucid dream while still awake in this life. That's all. And I'm not the only one. In fact, that's going to be accelerating, by the way, over the next decade. That's going to be happening more, just so you guys know. Devon brings up, as a Mason, they've noticed a lot of Kabbalah in their travels in life, and it bothers some brothers. Say it's just me finding something I'm looking for, but I think it was intentional, of course, because Kabbalah is a map of consciousness, or a map of the absolute, and it is not universally valid, but it is a very universal map. It's like a good roadmap to divinity, and it resonates within other cultures, and it resonates around the world. The ideas are shared through many cultures, and it's probably because it comes from that Atlantean protoculture, the Anunnaki or whatever. Probably. That's my guess. Devon asks, so would Nephilim be more allegorical, physical, spiritual, or a bit truth in both of these? So here's the problem, and I'm having a hard time articulating it tonight because I'm not actually as articulate as usual tonight. I think I had too much caffeine today and I crashed before I came on. Part of the problem is that we have all been taught that these things are objectively reified in themselves. That Nephilim are different from Oni, and Oni are different from giants, and giants are different from the Nordic ogres, and all. No, they're all the same fucking thing, probably. In my opinion, what we call Nephilim, demigods, six-fingered giants with 2 rows of teeth in America, in the American burial grounds, Oni, which are very similar to the giants of the American burial grounds, Gilgamesh and other giants that once ruled our planet as our kings, our god kings. I believe that those are the Nephilim. I think they're the same thing. It's the same legend. And I don't think they were wiped out. I think that they were just driven underground. Remember, the Nephilim, the fallen watchers were driven to the abyss. They were driven to the pit. Well, the pit, the abyss, Sheol, underground, what they're talking about, probably Agartha. That's probably what they're talking about. Most likely. That's my guess. I don't know if it's true or not. It's my guess. The Nephilim, yes, the war was against their rule. They probably took over the planet. Some were probably fine. Some were probably bad. But there was probably a war with them. They were wiped out for the most part, driven underground too, driven out of the surface world or away from human civilization. Either way, they're not up here with us anymore. And when they are, they're usually mistaken for other things. Maybe they're Bigfoot. Who the fuck knows? But I don't think that, no, I don't think the Nephilim were allegorical or spiritual or anything like that. I think they were a physical entity in the sense that we're physical entities. I don't believe in physicalism. So when I say that, it's kind of like I got to do this, you know, I don't mean it, but because that's the language. Yes, I think they were material beings like we are, like our bodies are. But I don't think my problem is this. We are sitting on one side of a veil. So I have a curtain here, right? If my wife walked over, because she's on the other side of the curtain, if she walked over, put her hand on it, I would see a hand moving around in the curtain. But is that objectively, what I'm seeing, is that objectively a hand? No, it's a curtain that's being manipulated by a hand. So I don't objectively know there's a hand on the other side of that curtain. There's just something shaped like a hand on the other side of the curtain. So what I'm trying to get at is that we as human beings, the culture we've been brought up in, we try to categorically define these entities as if they are biological organisms within certain phyla or animal kingdoms, if you will. It's like we say, well, that's an Oni. It's completely different from a jinn. It's completely different from a Nephilim. It's completely different from this. That may or may not be the case. Why do I say that? Because to this point, none of you, and if you tell me you have, then you better prove it, none of you can produce a physical example of them for me to evaluate. I'm not saying you've never seen one. I'm not saying you've never seen one. You may have seen one physically. It may have happened for you. Maybe you're the lucky one of the lucky ones, maybe. But I don't think any of you could just be like, I'm going to make a Nephilim appear out of the ground for you. No, it's not going to happen. If you could do that, you wouldn't need me. You wouldn't need to impress me. You'd already be impressing the world. So no, I don't buy that. And if you did have that ability and you weren't impressing the world, you're probably in part of some secret society that does this shit. So it's not the same thing. Someone asked, do you still work with spirits? No, not in the way I did. No. I've gone back to, wouldn't call it an atheistic perspective at all. What I've gone back to is a self-reliant perspective. It's like I became so Luciferian, I told Lucifer to go fuck himself. It's like I became so independent that if they are there, if they're mad that I'm not there, too bad. Like, is their finger broken? They can't call me on the phone? No? I'm not worshiping shit. I will venerate ancestors. I will venerate memories. I will venerate entities that have helped me, sure. But I'm not, at the moment, I am just not into any kind of theistic or working with spirits practice anymore. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't. And it doesn't mean that they don't exist. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't. I'm saying that for me, I've gone back to that more mystical, I'm a Zen, mystical, non-dual. I am the God. I am the spirit. I am Neo. Does Neo need, right? This is what my teaching is to you. My teaching is not, dude. Every single one of you is Neo. You're all Neo. You're all Jesus. You're all the Messiah. All of you. Everyone listening to me, it. You are it. You are the savior of your life. You are the most powerful being in this universe. You. Not your personal body. Not even your personal mind. You, the part that's watching. That which is watching is God. That which is watching is Neo. That which is watching is what chooses what to watch. And it can watch anything. And it's watching this. Why? Why is it watching this? Why would it do that? It must have chosen this experience, but you're not having a good time. Why? What possesses you not to enjoy your time in this experience? I'm not scolding you. I'm not saying you're supposed to like it. I'm asking you why. Remember what EA said earlier in the stream? He said one of the things that I said to him that affected him the most was the statement, you suffer because you think you're not supposed to. So why are you not happy? Because you're not supposed to be all the time. Because without a little bit of unhappiness, you don't get to be happy. Without having the occasional, flat tire, right? You don't get the experience of having a smooth ride. Without the occasional bad day, you don't have a good day. And if you're having a lot of bad days, it's probably because you need that, like a palate cleanse, to have a good day. So in a way, I'm a bit of a Taoist too. I'm all over the map with this shit. Christian says, don't tell DH, but I downloaded his stuff so I can use it for personal use. You can do that. Go ahead. pretty much anything I've ever created, you can make all the copies for personal use you want, although I would prefer you not pirate my books. That's a preference. I'm not going to stop you. I do, like I went on Reddit, you can actually find some of my books for free in the whatchamacallit. There's a certain Reddit group where they have like all kinds of occult books. And I remember seeing this, and I was annoyed at first because I'm not some big corporation you're ripping off. When you go and you take my books and you pirate them, you're actually taking money directly out of my pocket. Yes, you're hurting Amazon, but I get the lion's share of the royalty, so you're hurting me more than anybody. You know, when you pirate my book because you don't want to spend the very reasonable fee that I charge for them. I don't charge $100 for my books. I charge like 10, 20, $30 for them. When you don't want to spend that money and you think you're so self-important that you get to have it for free, okay, I'm not going to stop you. I don't respect it because I'm an independent creator. If I was a big corporate entity and you were doing that, I would not care in the slightest, but I am an independent entity. So when you steal off me, that is stealing off me. I'm sorry, you are. But I'm not going to stop you, and I'm not even going to scold you because, look, I know all about Pirates Bay for a reason, okay? I use some of those. I mean, I would never do that, but those things exist, and I'm not opposed to them. What I have a problem with is when people they think they're entitled to someone else's work. So when I saw that on Reddit, are you okay, kitty? What did you do? What did you do that for? Some people said they want to see my cat, but she's like 30 pounds, and she's old, and I don't want to. She'd probably be okay, but the last time I picked her up, we didn't have as much fun. I will do it if I have to, but I don't want to. Right, Kitty Moo? Yeah, I know you're mad. What do you want? She's doing the pet me or else I'll bite you, and if you pet me, I'll bite you then too. Anyway, yeah, so when people rip you off that way, so I went to the Reddit channel where all whatever the Reddit is it a channel? Whatever it is, whatever Reddit rooms are. I went to the Reddit section where my books are being pirated. And I just showed up and said, hey, look, if you enjoy the book, please consider purchasing it because you're taking money directly out of my pocket, but otherwise I'm not going to stop you. What do you want me to do? You want me to get all on my high horse and call down some mod to take these down? That's Amazon's job, man. It's not my job. Amazon's the one providing the books. They're the ones that are supposed to go after this stuff, but they don't. So if you want to get my books for free, that's one way you can do it. If you really want to be a dork about it, I would just ask that pay it forward, do something with it. If you're going to take that stuff for free, if you get something out of it, consider donating or something. Send me some money on fucking Patreon or something, anything. Because I could use it, guys. I'm not exactly rich. I don't care to be rich. That's not my goal. Okay, so affirmations and incantations asks, I guess based on what I was saying before, it does make sense. What meditation techniques have you used? Here, I'm going to stop you again. Your thinking process. You're still thinking in terms of cause. You're still trying to cause enlightenment. You can't do that. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm saying you can't. It's impossible. You cannot intentionally wake up. Think of it like trying to catch a fish. You can't catch a fish in the middle of a desert unless there's a body of water around somewhere, right? If you're in the middle of an arid desert with nothing but sand, you're not going to catch a fish by throwing your line in a sand dune. It's not going to happen. To catch a fish, you have to throw your line into water that contains fish. But you can't cause the fish to bite your line. You have to lure it in. You have to call it in. You have to entice it. You have to attract it. Enlightenment and awakening is like this. If you have gotten the idea of true gnosis, you've heard about it, you want to have it. You can't cause it. No amount of meditation will cause liberation. No amount of spiritual practice will wake you up. If I could take a stand on one thing, like if I could change one thing about how everybody approaches spirituality, forget everything else I've ever taught. This is probably the one thing that I would do. I would remove from the mind of everyone asking these questions the idea that you can cause awakening, that you can cause enlightenment. And people will say, well, then what's the fucking point, Thorne? I guess I can't do it. No, you fool, you don't understand. It's already there. The reason you don't have this realization is not because you haven't done something. It's because you're trying to do something. Enlightenment is the default. You actually had to be indoctrinated out of it by society. When you were born, you knew what you were. You didn't know it intellectually because you didn't need to. You knew it. See, you think that knowledge is knowing, or should I say repeating 1 + 1 = 2. That's not knowledge. Knowledge isn't a database. That's not knowledge. Knowledge is experiential. Knowledge is in the moment. Knowledge is awareness of it. If I tell you that 2 + 2 = 4 and you believe me and parrot it, you don't know that 2 + 2 = 4. You just know how to copy and paste what I've said. But if you know that 2 + 2 = 4, you know why. Not only do you know why, you've experienced it being true. So true gnosis, what I'm describing, enlightenment, true gnosis, mystical attainment, whatever your word for it is, samadhi, these are states of awareness, states where you are no longer clouded by delusion. So what practices do you do? Is letting go a practice? Can you practice letting go, or do you just do it? To attain gnosis, you have to let go of the delusions that block it. Imagine that you're holding on to something that's causing you pain. How do you get rid of it? Do you practice opening your hand, or you just open your fucking hand? You just open your hand. You drop the thing that's hurting you. You don't squeeze it harder, you let it go. So all of these practices, they're designed to help you let go, but you don't need them. So there's no practice that will cause you to wake up, but there is a way to fish for enlightenment. There is a way. This is why Jesus said, I will make you fishers of men. Because you can't cause people to wake up, but you can dangle the lure and give them the chance to wake up. You can do that. So instead of thinking of it as what practices can I do to wake up, think of it as first you have to assess what your attachments are. How am I attached to this mortal delusion? How am I attached to my ego and think that's what I am? How am I attached to the material dream? What can I not live without? What would upset me the most? What am I most triggered by? Do the shadow work. These kinds of things are the practices that help. Going into a ritual room, putting on a robe and saying, bibbidi bobbidi boo, I'm fucking tetragrammaton, does not enlighten you. Going into a Zen monastery, a Buddhist temple somewhere, and just going, oh, that doesn't enlighten you. Meditating doesn't enlighten you, just like knocking on a door doesn't open it. It's exactly the same relationship, exactly the same. Magic rituals don't open the door. It knocks on the door. And until that is intuitively known by you, so long as you believe that you have to do something to wake up, you're not going to wake up. You can try and try and try, and you never will. So there is no practice or meditation or technique that will give you gnosis. There is nothing you should do or use to attain siddhi. And yes, even the part where you're repeating what I say, where you just think of it as something that has happened, that's an approach. You're knocking on a door. That doesn't make it happen. In fact, if I were to assess you, if I was being a mentor to you, if you signed up and did my mentor thing and you gave me the money, I'd be working hard on breaking you of this assumption that you have to do something. I would be trying to encourage you to go to that lazy, intuitive way, to be in the moment, to be present, and then intuitively know, spontaneously do. Don't plan, don't try to force things. I shouldn't say don't plan at all. I just mean when it comes to these things, be loose, be free, be like water. Fit into any container, be fluid, be adaptable. But really what I'm telling you is to let go. What is water except a solid that let go of its solidity? What's a liquid other than a solid that just let go of being solid? It relaxed, right? Maybe not literally, but metaphorically, that's what a liquid is. It's a solid that let go of its tension. It's ice that melted, right? So how do you get away from this material delusion? Well, you let it melt. You let go of it. You relax. You let go of what you're holding on to. Let go of the structure. Let go of the force. Learn to do without doing. Learn to walk without moving your legs. Just let your legs move. Learn to let go and just be. And it happens. Devon says, I heard that too, talking about the Agartha stuff about them being driven underground. I've heard a lot of Christians speak how the Nephilim are inhabiting certain humans and they blame that on possession. Actually, they're not wrong. Let me educate you here. In many cases, what we call possession is probably just a past life persona coming through in a lot of cases. Not all, but a lot. In some cases, it could be another mental being hijacking the avatar body. It's possible. I don't disagree with that possibility, but when people say that they're Nephilim possessing people, maybe not, but they could be reincarnated Nephilim. Because according to when I was a child, some of my past life regressions, I was a Nephilim in a past life. I was also supposedly a watcher. So people would say, well, how is that possible? How could a watcher be this? Because the cosmology at play is wrong. We're working through mythology, so we don't have that right. What we call a watcher is probably an Anunnaki being. It might be ethereal. It might be angelic. It might be, but it could also be just a Pleiadian that died on this planet and reincarnates here now as a human. It's possible that's what's going on. It's possible that's true for a lot of people. It could even be possible that there are beings that are disembodied, that are just spiritual entities that just can inhabit. It's possible. The problem is I don't like speaking in absolutes about these things, because if you want me to say that they are objectively real, I can't do that. I can tell you subjectively they're real. I can't tell you objectively they're real. I can tell you what I've experienced. I can tell you what people have told me. But I can't tell you definitively that angels are real in the objective sense the way they're described. I don't think they are. In a multiverse, sure, there's probably a universe somewhere where there's angels flying around, just like in the popular culture. But I know better. I know where mythology, literal truth in cases. Again, the Anunnaki, the Elohim, they are probably based on interdimensional and extraterrestrial beings, or maybe there's no distinction. Maybe that's the same thing all the way through. Maybe. So all I'm saying is I just discourage dogmatism. As a true chaos magician, I discourage dogmatism. I want you to keep an open mind and say, I don't know. I'd rather you say, I don't know. I'd rather you realize that you don't know. Instead of trying to assert that this spectrum of deities and entities is real in the objective sense. Just be okay with the idea that they're made up in your mind. Because everything is, ultimately, when you think about it, that's what everything is. It's ultimately all made up in your mind. So when you realize that, who cares? Whatever your experiences is, lean into them. Just like EA was saying, because that's also my teaching from a long time ago. Never, ever, ever, ever in the moment doubt your experiences. Let them be what they are. Obviously, be careful. I don't mean just let everything go wild. I'm saying if you're doing a ritual and you feel like there's an entity present, lean into that shit. Don't deny it. Don't debunk it. Let it be a spirit. Let it be Satan himself if you think that's who it is. But after the fact, after the ritual, after all of this, after the spookies went away, then sit down and untangle that situation and really test it. Test the spirits, always test them. Even if you believe they're there, test them. Ask them for signs. Ask them for proof. Until you know to trust, at the very least. And even when you trust, After the fact, go through the experiences and try to understand what they meant. Don't just take them at face value after. So think of it like you're a journalist or a scout. Does a scout, when they're on patrol, do they question what they're patrolling? Do they say, "Oh, that's not do they judge it?" No, they just record it. They record what happened, they lean into what's happening, and they come back, and then they're debriefed, and then intelligence takes over. In a similar way, do your ritual, lean into the experience, and when you're done, write that shit down, or if you recorded it on video, fine, whatever you do, review it, and then go with what so then take the review process and use that, but don't become dogmatic about anything you've discovered through that review process either. What do I mean by dogmatic? Belief is always rooted in dogmatism. If you have a belief, you have to be very careful not to be dogmatic about it. There is knowledge, that's gnosis. You have knowledge. True knowledge isn't a belief. You cannot be convinced otherwise. When you have true knowledge of something, you can't be convinced. So you know you exist. And how do you know you exist? Because you're able to question it. You're able to experience the question. So you know you exist. And there's no argument I could ever give to take away that knowing. You know that you know. I can't take that away from you with any argument. There's literally no argument that exists that can stop you from knowing that you know. You're self-aware. That is not debatable. But you can't prove to someone else that you're self-aware. They have to believe it. They can only believe that you're self-aware because they're not you personally. They don't have your personal subjective experience. They don't know that you're aware. But they're aware and they know they're aware, so they can assume you are too. See how that works? So you have a belief that's rooted in a knowledge. It's an assumption, but it's a safe bet, right? But then you have beliefs which you are required to believe, that you become dogmatic about, that you defend. You don't challenge, you defend them through faith, through even without evidence, you'll defend them. That's when you get into dogmatism. You're starting to head into dogma. So dogmatic thinking is to be avoided. This is why if you listen to me over the years, my opinions change all the time. Sometimes I flip-flop. I sound like a flip-flopper. I'm not flip-flopping. It's just in that moment while I'm evaluating it, it feels that way. With new evidence, new opinions arrive. But you notice there's certain things that never change. Non-duality never changes. I get better at talking about it, but it never changes. It's always the same truth. That's something I know to be true. Or should I say it's not even know to be true. It is truth itself. And everything emerges from that truth. When you know that truth, that's the pinnacle that you can achieve in this incarnate state. To go any further requires completely letting go, not even being a spiritual entity anymore. If you really want to become that truth, if you want that truth to be 100%, ego must go completely away. You have to completely let go of it. You can do that while you're watching it, but you can't be ego and be God at the same time. You can't be your egoic identity and be the divine at the same time. The divine doesn't have a personal identity. The divine just is. The divine is that which the divine is that from which all identity emerges. It itself is not an identity. So God is not a Father, a Son, a Holy Ghost, or anything else. The divine is simply existence that's consciousness. The divine Brahman it just is. It's an isness. It's not a specific objective thing. It's not a quality. It doesn't have qualities. It doesn't have anything. It just is. And then everything that has appearance manifests in that. So Affirmative Incantations asks, so is there no point to spirituality in these practices? It's all just letting go? Correct. There's no point to anything because you're still locked. When you ask that question, you're demonstrating that you're still locked in the egoistic world of cause and effect, a machine universe, a machine reality, a reality where you have to push it around to get what you want. You know what the purpose of these practices are? To give the ego something to do until the divine decides it wants to wake up. Go watch my old content. That's always been what I've said. Listen to Alan Watts very carefully. Listen to any enlightened master very carefully. They always tell you the same thing. There's nothing you can do to cause awakening. There's nothing you can do to force this. You can't make it happen. It happens when you make it, it happens when it happens. And it happens when it happens because that's your ultimate will. It's inevitable, in fact. In fact, it's inevitable that you all will wake up eventually. How can you make that happen if it's already going to happen? Here's the problem. You're thinking in terms of time. Everything, all of these questions are about time. You're submitting to Saturn when you ask me, how do I make this happen? Because you're accepting time as a limit. You're thinking, I'm here now, not there then. But you're there then too. You just don't see it that way yet. You haven't moved into that space in consciousness. You haven't shifted that perspective yet. You're already awake. You're already enlightened. You're not aware of it yet. Wild, I know, but that's the fact of the matter. Time is an illusion. There is only an eternal now. The eternal now can look like any moment. And any moment you can imagine exists in the eternal now, and you're only in this one moment because it's a choice to be here. You've chosen to be asleep. You've chosen to be this person experiencing the illusion of time and being limited to time and space. You've chosen this. This is the practice. You get it? If anything, you're trying to stop practicing. Totally unintuitive for most people. They can't wrap their heads around that. And then comes the question, how do you stop on purpose? Isn't that doing it? Isn't that doing something? Exactly. Listen to Alan Watts. He's very clear. Very brilliant point. If I told you can't become enlightened by doing it on purpose, how do you stop doing it on purpose without doing that on purpose? Am I not trying now to be enlightened? If you can't become enlightened by trying, how do you stop trying without trying? See, it's a catch-22. It is really simple. It just sounds hard. Why? Because you're still thinking process. You're still thinking temporally. You're still thinking limited. You're still thinking incarnate. You're thinking you have to do something to cause it. Speaking from experience, there's nothing you can do to cause it. It will just happen on its own, even if you do nothing. Cases of spontaneous enlightenment are well documented in various mystical traditions, especially in the East. But they'll be the first to tell you that that's a very special person who probably went through many incarnations, and one of their recent past lives was probably a monk or something. That's how they rationalize it. But even then, if you listen to the guys who really know, like the guru, when he says that, read his energy, he's smirking. Oh yes, they were probably a very enlightened monk in a past life. And they'll have a smirk. You can feel it because they know what they're saying. They're saying that to placate the normies who still don't get it, because normies need a process. Normies need a path to follow. Think of all this magic shit like in the old movies when someone would be giving birth and they'd tell the husband to go get a bucket of hot water and a towel. And then sometimes the joke would be, actually, we don't need the towel or the bucket of water. We just do that so they got something to do to get their mind off of what's happening. That's what magic is. But I'm being a little bit irreverent. What it really is it's de-indoctrinating you from the indoctrination of the material culture that we're in. This is why different strokes for different folks when it comes to this. Not everybody's been indoctrinated to the same degree or the same way. Some people don't need anything. Some people just need to ask questions. Some people need to meditate. Some people don't. Some people need to do Western magic. Some people do Eastern yoga. Some people do other things. Some people do nothing and it just happens. And you know, if that bothers you, you should listen to that and ask why. If there's a party that goes, that doesn't make sense, I don't buy that, really examine that line of thinking, trace it to its source. Why don't you buy that? Why does it not feel right? Because I guarantee you, if we spent the time together examining it, and you trusted me to do so, I could lay bare how that's actually your ego talking. Because the ego reifies itself by feeling like a doer and a victim simultaneously. It is the thing that is done and is doing to all. It is maximally real because it is part of causal reality. The ego wants to feel like it has control and power over things. That reifies it to itself. So the ego gets upset when you tell it it can't enlighten itself. Oh, does it get mad? It says, I'll prove you wrong. I'm going to go and I'm going to meditate twice as long and twice as hard as everybody. You see the joke? If you go to a real Zen monastery, I don't mean probably that all of them in Japan, but I don't mean that. I mean the ones where they truly have enlightenment going on there. You speak to the guy who's running the joint and you ask him, and if he's going to be honest with you, he's going to tell you, Alan Watts said it as well. If you go to these guys and you ask them, what are all these people doing? Oh, these are just stupid people doing something stupid. And they sound like they're being irreverent on themselves. It sounds like they're being self-deprecating or trying to put their ego down or something. They're trying to insult themselves to be humble. No, they're being tongue-in-cheek because they know that there's nothing that they're doing that's doing anything. They're not it's not pointless, but it's not achieving anything either. Learn about Wu Wei, learn about Taoism. You'll understand what I'm trying to get at. There's nothing you can do. Nothing you can do. It just is. And that's so unsatisfying. That is so unsatisfying because the ego wants to be able to do it. Now you come to understand what yoga is about. Yoga is getting the ego into alignment with the truth. Yoga, or all of these spiritual practices, is actually a way to get your monkey mind, your little childish ego self, to stop throwing temper tantrums like it's got to control shit. It's different approaches to doing that. Sometimes we do that by giving the ego what it wants, and sometimes we do that by being as self-deprecating and like those monks in the burlap robes, right? We give up all the pleasures of life. There's different ways you can make the ego stop. You can take a fuck ton of psychedelics. You want to have the ego go away? You want to have that Gnostic state without earning it? Go drop a whole fuck ton of fucking shrooms or something. Go sit in a dark room and look up the dose. And this is not, by the way, I'm not endorsing the use of psychedelics, YouTube. I am simply saying that is an option that people have. Not a recommendation. Also, it's not a discouragement. I'm no hypocrite. But my point is that go take a heroic fucking dose and then tell me what your ego is when you come back. But I will say this, if you do it without a mystical upbringing, without a mystical priming, without being initiated, psychedelics on their own often just lead to worse confusion because you're not primed, you don't know what you're getting. You think you died. Like you will think you died. And it's traumatic as hell even when you know it's coming. But you know what's never been traumatic for me? The ego death through transcendental meditative process. Yeah, I might have had to use a little cannabis to help me relax enough to hit, especially with ADD, to get really deep. I kind of I want to say I have to, but I kind of have to use a little chemical assistance, a little medicinal assistance, because something always just distracts. Even if I'm silent, completely silent internally, something distracts my attention. I'll be getting deeper. I'll be removing all things, and then next thing you know, it's not even a thought. My attention is on the wrong thing. It's on something objective rather than nothing, rather than the source itself. Yep, there is that vibration, and yep, you get that buzz. There's also the inner sound, the inner Om sound that we all sort of have. It's not tinnitus, but there is actually, if you listen for it, there's actually a sound ever present, and it's not tinnitus. There's something else. There is an ever present sound. I keep telling you how it works, affirmations and incantations. It's actually very simple. They ask, so can magic cause physical change in our reality? No. Can I get what I want with magic? No, you don't need magic at all. How does manifestation work? How does manifesting work in your experience? It just does. Okay. Let me give you an analogy. When you read, even EA brought this up because he gets it now. He's starting to get this point too. Okay. This is where the future of all this is going, by the way. If you want to know the future of like cutting edge, bleeding edge technique of magic, it's not what you're probably learning. It's learning to, some will call it reality shifting, some will call it timeline shifting, some just call it manifestation. That's what I prefer. You're choosing. You're not causing. You're choosing a pathway through the multiverse, both time and space, to experience. You're making a choice, a decision. Do you have to do anything to make a decision? Is there any practice? You can make better decisions with practice, sure. But do you have to practice making decisions to make them? No. Your higher self is navigating the infinite possibilities of the divine all the time. It's constantly navigating all the possibilities of, call it the Akashic Record, call it the Pleroma, call it reality. It's constantly navigating the multiverse. Every plank second of your experience, it is making a choice of what to experience next. You, the incarnate being, are the product of that. Your higher self is choosing who you are right now. Your higher self is choosing who your personal self is and what they're doing. So no, magic does not cause physical change in the world. That's why it doesn't fucking work. Dum, 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 a magician telling you magic doesn't work. Yes, that's why. That's the blind. That's a blind that they've given you, my friend. The idea that magic changes physical reality. That is a subtle blind because it's rooted in the wrong metaphysical foundation. It's like telling someone they could fly by flapping their wings. They don't have wings, but you can fly. You can absolutely fly. So they've given you a false pretense of what magic is, and that's why you follow people like me and EA instead of just doing it your own way like we do. I sound smug and arrogant. There's a reason for that if you were watching earlier. I'm challenging you. I'm trying to challenge your mind right now. Challenging you. You can prove me wrong by going down this path you're going down and keep doing all these rituals as long as you want for the rest of your life and get nowhere. Or you can have the realization anytime you're ready to have it. Until you're ready, it won't happen. Go watch What Dreams May Come and notice very similar teachings. He won't see the person's form until he's ready. It's the same thing. Until you're ready, you won't manifest what you really need. It's not about wants and desires. Fuck wants. Wants and desires are responses to what is. The will is not a response to what is. The will is what makes the what it is. Your true will is always what is manifest. Always. The question is, why are you not okay with that? Why is it not manifesting in a way that you are consciously aware of? That's the better question. Not how will magic work? Why does magic change? No, it doesn't change physical reality. There is no physical reality. But let me give you a perfect analogy of what magic and manifestation really do. Have you ever heard of a choose your own adventure book? If you've ever read a choose your own adventure, you know automatically what I'm about to say. Do you have to do anything to choose the right page to continue? No. You just read the book, and when you get to the choice, you make a choice, you turn to the page, and that's it. So what is magic then? What are you doing? You're actually training yourself. That's all it's doing. Think of magic and sorcery, the practice, as training wheels. That's all it is. Encounter any true master of the art, they can do a spell just twisting their fucking ring on their finger. They can do a spell just by looking at you funny. That's not an exaggeration. It's the truth. And it's not a machine, so it doesn't always work because it's psychological in most ways. It is more psychological than anything. You have to, it's the art of choosing. Magic is the art of choosing. Sorcery is the art of choosing consciously. It's the art of lucid dreaming. That's an even better analogy. If you read Become the Maelstrom, I describe magic as a kind of lucid ability. Enlightenment is being lucid while alive. You don't have to die to find out you're not this body. The problem is people hear what I'm saying, and because it will cause some cognitive dissonance, their ego won't like it. They'll go, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Or he's contradicting himself. He sells books of magic and tells me it doesn't work. No, read between the lines. Go below the surface of language. Go below that surface and get to the root of what I'm saying. And what I'm telling you is your magic rituals don't cause anything. Your magic rituals are already something you're caused. They're an afterthought. You already chose the outcome when you decided to do the ritual. The magic happened before you lit a single fucking candle. The magic happens long before you take a single act. The magic is the choice you made. The magic was the choosing of the timeline you're going down. That's the magic. And if that doesn't conform to what you want, you've got a different problem. You think that reality is supposed to conform to desire, but desire conforms to the way things are. Desire is on the end of the stick, not holding it. Desire doesn't cause shit. Desire is caused by everything. So when you say, how do I get what I want? Do you see the irony in that question? Change what you want. Control what you are. You don't control shit. You choose. You can choose how to respond to what is. That's a very baby step. When you learn, I'm not going to let this make me angry. When you learn, I am not going to cry out in pain when I stub my toe. You're choosing different possible responses. This trains you to choose better and more intuitively. And at some point, you can do magical practices for this. You can do sorcery practices for this. That's fine. But the point is you're training yourself to choose consciously. And you start with things that are mundane, but eventually you work your way inward until eventually you can choose timelines. You can even potentially choose paradigms. But making a conscious choice in that while simultaneously being in it, that's not easy. Most of the better techniques for manifestation, reality shifting occur at bedtime. You set yourself up, you go to sleep, and during that skip where you're skipping, where you're not having any experiences that you're aware of, like that dead period of sleep where you're just dead asleep, there's no dreams as far as you can remember at least, that some people use that as their doorway. They say, when I go to sleep tonight, I'm leaving this timeline, I'm going to wake up in a new one. But here's the thing, it's none of us, as far as I can tell, certainly not me, have the consistent ability. Some have done it once or twice, but no one that I know of has the consistent ability to just shift whole hog right away. In other words, wake up in a completely different life. That doesn't happen. And if it does, it's a shock. It feels surreal, and you might feel like you went crazy. So it's not comfortable. That's cognitive dissonance, and your psyche avoids that at most costs. Not all costs, but most. If I said you could go to bed tonight and wake up and be a completely different person, if you had continuity from the person you are now to that new person, you'd wake up crazy. The bigger the number of changes in your life, the crazier you're going to feel. Because I've made minor shifts that made me feel crazy because things were different in some way I couldn't explain. They just felt wrong. Or should I say they felt right when they didn't feel right before? It was too good to be true. It was too, like deja vu almost. It makes you feel a little nutty. So when you make a jump that is significant enough, even if it's subtle, you don't notice the difference. If it's a significant enough jump, part of your psyche resists that and wants to go back to the normal world that you came from. In fact, this is why some people have experience of supernatural things happening and then later they get debunked and it's like, I could swear that happened, but it was really just some swamp gas. Like, holy shit. You probably jumped from a reality where it did happen to one where it didn't. And it was just swamp gas. And your continuity between those two, you defaulted to the more reasonable solution. What I'm basically telling you is that your memory of things is probably more true than you realize. You probably jump universes all the time. And your wrong memories are probably just memories from that alternate reality. That's just as possible in the model that I use. It's still rude to try to force it because the reality you're in right now is different. And by the way, I'm not the only one saying these things. Look up a guy named Daryl Atkins. Daryl Atka he channels this entity he calls Bashar. Look up these concepts I'm talking about. I thought I made them up. I thought I came up with them independently. I did, but I didn't make them up in a vacuum where no, apparently these are ideas a lot of people have. And they're not even new. I just never heard them before when I came up with them. I thought I invented them. Nope. I have my own way of doing it, my own way of talking about it, and I've learned some things from these other people that have helped me too. You know, it's like when you're a really good carpenter, you can still learn some tricks from another carpenter. You know what I mean? So no, magic doesn't cause physical change. It doesn't give you what you want. Manifestation works in my experience exactly the same way as choosing a different part of a choose your own adventure to read. It's a conscious choice. The question is identifying when that choice was made. You are constantly choosing, constantly choosing. Every moment is a choice. You can choose to experience all of it at once or nothing. By the way, the two things look the same. When you experience all of reality at once, it looks the same as nothing all at once. Because everything collides, combines, and cancels out. All positives and all negatives, they become equal. They become the equal sign. Indistinguishable. This is why when you go into the deepest levels of meditation, it seems like nothingness. But it's not. Because you're still there. It's like you're there, but it's nothing. But you're not there as an ego, but there is there-ness. There is awareness, there is presence, and that presence is what you are, but you're not personified, you're not egoized, you're just aware of being aware in awareness, aware of itself. It's indescribable. It's not a feeling, it's not a place, it's not a time. It just is. And when that state is attained, you recognize that reality wasn't rejected, you zoomed out. It's like you were zoomed in on reality when you're this person. You zoomed all the way out, and now you're seeing everything all at once. The raindrop became the ocean, and the ocean became the raindrop. They merged, they became one. There was no difference. By the way, that is a powerful state of magic. Do your magic rituals, get into that state and come back out. That's your skip. That's your skip of the stone. That's you leaving this timeline and entering somewhere else potentially. Just another technique. It's just making a conscious decision. I am choosing this timeline. The problem is the ego wants to control it. The ego wants to do it. But the ego can't. The ego is what's being done. The ego is the glove on the hand that's grabbing the ball, right? That's what the ego is. Is the mask. Does the mask speak or do you? Does the glove grab or do you grab through the glove? This idea that the ego gets to choose is where you get hung up. It's probably where you are hung up, considering the nature of your questions. You are waiting for a power to come to the ego that it can never have. The egoic identity is what is done. It is what responds. It is what is being done. It can't do it. Your ego doesn't do magic. Your ego doesn't choose anything. You do. You choose what your ego does. You choose what your ego wants. This is all mind-blowing until you get it. Then it's intuitive as hell. It makes perfect sense instantly. You don't even have to think about it. Someone can ask you a question, you just know, but it's like you don't have to consult any rule book. You just know. And then someone will say, well, Thorne, if this is true, then make the sky fall. If I did, it would fall for me, not you. Because I would shift into that timeline. And in that timeline, you'd see it with me and I'd get all the praise, but you wouldn't see it. So you'd be going, Thorne, you lied to me. It's really like that. And that's why it's so hard. Listen, anybody who's practiced magic long enough or sorcery long enough, I guarantee you, anyone who's practiced long enough will have experiences where they will have something that they know happened, but no one else sees it. And it's the weirdest fucking thing. You'll do a ritual for something and people will be like, no, I didn't see that happen. It's always been that way. Or, no, that was just the wind or something. So they'll rationalize it away. Or they will have a memory that's different than yours. That's a clue. And it happens on a long enough timeline of practice. Keep doing magic and keep having successful results in this mundane, materialistic way that we're talking. Oh, I keep doing rituals and sooner or later, you'll have one that manifests what you were hoping, what you were intending, and you're the only one who experiences it. Does that mean it didn't happen? No. Does that mean that it's just in your head? No. You're the only one that it happens to. If I do a ritual, if I do a not ritual, if I just will $1 million into my life, it's going to look like I won the lotto to everybody else. It's going to look like I made a good, savvy business decision to everybody else. But I will know that I chose to go down a timeline path in which that happens or appears to happen. And I will know that I chose that. I didn't cause it, I chose it. And maybe the reason it didn't happen is because I chose it now, but then I changed my mind and chose something else later. Not quite sure what you're saying, Jacqueline Land. So what did be that magic just allows? Grammatically, I can't quite understand what you're asking. So what did magic? No. Something like that, Devin. Yes. Something like that. It's not quite that simple either. This is what I was saying to EA before. I don't want to make it sound like it's all one thing and not the other too. What I'm saying is there's two perspectives of the same question. From the material side of the question, it's going to look like cause and effect, like you had to do the ritual to do it. From the higher side, it's going to look like you didn't have to do it. That was just a thing you did to rationalize it. Both will seem true. The ultimate truth is the source and only the source. So that means both are true, both are lies. Neither is true, neither is false. But I push this other way because people are deeply indoctrinated into only one. That is the material side of it. In Become the Maelstrom, I explain very carefully that good magic involves a holistic approach. You do something spiritual or mental, something physical, something psychic, something, you know, so you operate on multi dimensions. You don't just light a candle, you light a candle and visualize. You don't just light a candle and visualize, you light a candle, visualize, and feel. You don't just light a candle, visualize, and feel, you also imagine the future. You do, so it's multi-layers. It's not just one thing you're doing. People, this is how I can tell when someone's a legit magician or not. A legit magician doesn't just go through the motions. There's feeling in it. In fact, the feeling is more important than the operation itself. The operation is what's supposed to trigger the feeling. So if you really think about it, ritual magic is mainly a way to trigger things, not just a way to rationalize it. Chaos magic wants you to think it's just a way to rationalize it, and it works that way. It does. But that's only one way it can work. Think of it like there's more than one way to skin a cat. Besides, if you really study ritual magic, what is all ritual magic other than yoga? If you're talking about sorcery, that's different. Those are spells. Those are things you do to manifest a change in your fate. It's to make a choice in fate that's different from the one that you're on. It's changing your karma, if you will. It's choosing to go left instead of the path you're on that goes right. That's all it is. It's just a choice you're making, but you're doing it symbolically with an act of faith. You're making a jar spell. You're saying a prayer. You're visualizing and anticipating. There's so many different ways. There is no one way. In fact, the only way is always. There is the way, and then there's different ways. Then there is the way, and then there's different manifestations of the way. That's Taoism for you. There is the Tao, and the Tao takes many forms. There is one way, and it takes many forms. There is one style, and it takes many forms. Again, here's the thing, Devin. Who and what is it that's trying to do it? The ego is the one that's talking right now. The ego says, I've had intentions. Well, the ego can't do this. The ego is riding along. The ego's just along for the ride. So long as you're saying, I've had intentions that didn't happen, that means they weren't your intentions. The intention was to have the false intention. See, so whenever you have a failure to manifest, walk your assumptions back a layer. Walk the process back one layer. Like bug hunt it. Think of it like you're bug hunting a computer. Try to find the error that caused the problem. It's not that you didn't have the right intentions. It's not that your intentions weren't strong enough. It's not that you didn't do the ritual right. None of those things is why. It's because you misread your will. You confused your egoic desires for the higher will. When you have a relationship, see, I can't even speak right because the things I'm talking about don't work in dualistic language. I got to find workarounds. So you got to work with your will. That doesn't make any sense, does it? No, well, you've got to come to recognize the will being like consciousness. It's something you can't see directly. You recognize it only by its manifested form. So consciousness, you don't see consciousness, you see what consciousness manifests. You can't see consciousness. You see what manifests in consciousness, through consciousness. You can't see the will, you can see the result of the will. So if you're trying to achieve a result in magic or whatever your method is, I submit to you without any humility whatsoever, as an absolute expert who's always right, haha, I submit to you that the reason it seems like you're not doing it right, or it's not working, or some part of you said, I need this first, like you said in the rest of that, You have to walk it back another layer. You have to transcend that egoic thought process. I want you to do something completely spontaneous right now. By the way, if you did anything because I said so, it wasn't spontaneous, you failed. Good luck. You see my point? The ego is like that. The ego is what is hearing this and realizing it can't do it. And so it makes up a story about why it can anyway. Well, if I really am careful. So I'm telling you right now, everybody listening, do something spontaneous, but not because I told you. Good fucking luck. The ego is going to wrestle with that question for the rest of its life if you let it. The higher self will go, I already am. Your question itself was my will made manifest, boy. That's the answer. But if you arrived at that answer because I said it, you didn't arrive at that answer, you're parroting it. You still don't get it. See, we can go around and around and around. But I know, the true self knows, the true absolute knows that everything's spontaneously done by it. Its will is always done. It can be no other way. It doesn't have to choose or decide. It's just its will. It's just the way it's going to be. So you walk this back far enough, you get to a point where you go, why should I change anything? It's already going according to plan. That's when you go, oh, I must be enlightened then. Everything's already the way it's supposed to be. Nothing is wrong in this entire world. It's all exactly the way it's meant to be. Because I meant it to be this way when I manifested it. So it's the ego that wants to change it. Guys, it's like a mind fuck. All these gurus and magicians telling you can have your heart's desire if you just do this ritual, they're lying to you, or they don't know better. Or they're challenging you to find out the hard way because you really insist on looking. The fact is, boys and girls, you're not doing it. Like the person is not doing it. The ego self is not doing it. The ego self is just along for the ride. It is just a puppet on the end of a string. If the ego says, I want a cheeseburger, that's because something willed it to want the cheeseburger. The magic already happened before you even had the want. You don't do magic in that way of looking at things. Magic is always happening and you're being done. People don't like that because they don't feel like they're in control. Well, that's the ego talking. The ego says, I want control. It can't have control. Only the absolute exists. Only the absolute is what is. Yes, it is a lot like a flow state, Devon. That's the way most people experience it, at least at first. It's exactly like it. So a true flow state, it's a meditative state. A true flow state is I call it like the hand of God state. It's when the ego completely surrenders itself to its higher self. It's like the hand no longer being numb or fighting against what you're trying to have it do. Like you guys ever have a muscle spasm and you can't make your hand work or something, or some part of your body do what you want? When the ego finally settles the hell down and just relinquishes its pretense, nothing changes except everything goes according to plan. You get out of your own way. Listen to Alan Watts again, how to get out of your own way. The most magical thing you can do is get out of your own fucking way. But Thorne, don't you sell books on magic? Yes, I do. For the same reason that I would instruct you on how to make a cheeseburger. Knowing what I know, my telling you how to make a cheeseburger doesn't make a cheeseburger. It's just a way the cheeseburger can manifest through a temporal lens. Since you're looking through a temporal lens, you can do rituals or you can do it another way. For most of you, because you're existing in this egoic state of mind, you need the rituals. You need the magical rituals. You need them because you believe you do. You can't see any other way out. But at some point, if you follow this inquiry far enough, if you contemplate what I'm telling you long enough, if you go deep enough inside yourself, you realize that all of these things are just superficial waves on an ocean, and you are that ocean waving. And the whole question of, should I do a ritual to get money or whatever I want, goes out the window. You just kind of do this. If I'm not rich, it's probably because I don't need to be yet. I don't want to be yet. My will is not to be rich yet. When it is my will, it will happen whether I want it to happen or not. So if I'm not rich, there's a reason. And it's not because I'm a weak, powerless nothing. Remember, it's the ego that wants to be told how powerful it is. Good way to put it, Rusty. I agree with that. Just because you can do magic without anything doesn't mean it's not fun to have stuff. I completely. Why do you think I still play with it? Do you think that I do the rituals because I think they do anything? Like objectively? No, they don't do anything objectively. They're a form of entertainment, performance art. Read Become the Maelstrom. I make it very clear in the first chapters. Magic is a performance art that elevates or helps the mind shift into different realities. That's all it's doing. It's just a Dumbo feather, boys and girls. It's just a Dumbo feather. It's not necessary. Even the imagery, the symbolism, the sacred geometry, all of these things, they're just different kinds of Dumbo feathers. Does God need a raft to get across the ocean? Does God need a magic wand to cast a spell? Does Neo need a fucking computer to enter the Matrix? Boys and girls, it's right in front of you. But Thorne, if this is true, prove it. I can't prove it to you. I can prove it to me. And I can prove it to you by you proving it to yourself, but I can't prove it to you. There is not a thing I can do that will make you believe what I'm telling you. But I can instruct you. I can say, try this. And if you're ready, you will see it. And you won't be able to see it any other way. Once you see it this way, all the other ways go out the window. Once you have the 1,000-foot view, it's hard to see things from the floor anymore. It's like once you have a good GPS, it's hard to just navigate with a map, right? Same kind of idea. Once you have this higher perspective, it's hard to see reality any other way. Yeah, I still got to get up and walk across the room to get a drink of soda. But I'm choosing that pathway. I'm not required to take that pathway. I'm choosing that specific pathway. Through the multiverse, through the temporal multiverse. In theory, and it has happened to everyone that's listening to me, I'm sure all of you have had a moment where you thought you were being absent-minded and just kind of realized you were doing something you didn't remember doing. How many of you guys have caught yourself, I don't know, doing something repetitive that you didn't know you were doing, or how many of you guys like got lost in something and didn't realize you were doing something else? It happens all the time. How many people get distracted and have a car accident? It's the same process. So we can all have a moment where we lose track of ourselves and wake up in a different state of reality. What I'm suggesting to you is that you can do that as a way to manifest things. But ultimately, it only works if you get out of your way. So what is magic as a practice? As a practice, the only rational form of magic is a form of yoga to gradually align the ego with the higher self until the two become one, until the two are in perfect resonance. When the true self and the ego are in perfect resonance, reality manifests according to will and desire simultaneously the same thing. Your desire and your will become the same thing. And at that point, you're going to feel all powerful because you just got to want it and it will be. But the truth is, it was always going to be that way, and now you just want it. You're training the ego to conform to the will of the divine rather than be in contrary opposition to it. Because the will of the divine is what occurs. The problem is, like certain religions, they externalize the divine as a separate entity from the ego. But Thorne, haven't you been saying the ego doesn't? Yes, I have. But that's different from saying that they're not the same thing. The ego is a manifestation. It is a habitual localization of awareness in a certain perspective, and it becomes an identity. The ego is something you're doing too. You're not at the mercy of your ego. Actually, that's not true, Rusty. He says, kind of off topic, but Satan talks about Satan. He's always admired Satan in that context. He's essentially like a worker trying to overthrow a tyrannical boss. That version of Satan exists nowhere in no book ever. It's not in the Bible. It's not in any of those things. What we call Satan, if you're going to go to Judaism, is Zamiel, which is the left hand of God, the angel of death. Satan is actually still on God's team. You're talking about the Christian mythos, the non-canonical mythos, no less, of Christianity. It's not in the Bible. It's not in the Christian literature anywhere. This character that's trying to overthrow Satan, that was, guys, if you do your research and you find out where that comes from, you're going to laugh all day long and you're going to throw that shit in the toilet. You're not even going to respect that story, because you're going to realize that Milton's version of Satan, which is what you're describing, that idea of Satan as this angel that's cast out of heaven into hell as punishment for trying to overstep God, that idea is false on its face. What it is, it's an attempt to demonize the Gnostic teachings. The entire concept of Satan and Lucifer in the Christian lore is actually the demonization of the Gnostic form of Christianity. Because the Gnostics believed that the God Yahweh was Satan, and that Satan was the demiurge, that Satan was a flawed emanation, or at least an emanation in darkness. It may have been well intended, but it was flawed in some way. Because the further you get from the source, the less perfect things become. The less like the source they appear. The more obscured they are. And so the source, the monad, the divine, had to send one of its aeons, one of its angels, basically, their version of an angel, to rectify the situation. That angel is Lucifer. Look it up. That angel Lucifer incarnates as the serpent in the garden. It incarnates as Jesus in Nazareth. The Gnostics believed that Lucifer was Jesus. Now do you see where the Christian Catholics might have decided to create this non-canonical story demonizing this Lucifer Satan character as an affront to the one true God who's pretending to be God, who's trying to overthrow God? Do you get it? This entire story, this Milton version of Satan Lucifer, is a mythologized refutation of the Gnostic teaching. You've been taught a lie. I'm telling you right now, between 70 and I'm being very conservative when I say 70. It's probably more like 90, 95%. Somewhere between 70 and 90, or even 95% of everything you've ever been taught, depending upon where you live and what you were taught, is a lie. Or it is based on a lie, or it is misinformation, or is just wrong. I promise you that if you go down the rabbit holes deep enough, you will come out going, we do live in a matrix. It's just not in a computer. The matrix has multiple levels. There's the mental matrix, which manifests as your personal reality. That is a kind of matrix. But in that matrix too, there is the influence matrix of the lies of society and the powers that be. They tell you up is up and down is down and blue is blue and all this kind of shit, but it has no precedent, no truth behind it. Just like they tell you that there's no aliens, but we all know there's aliens. Just like they tell you that Joe Biden won the election perfectly legally in 2020 and there was no shenanigans whatsoever, and anyone who suggests otherwise is a traitor. Just like that, they lie about everything. Just like they lied about religion. Just like they lie about physics and metaphysics. They lie about everything. The truth is out there. And that's a double entendre. It's both out there in the fact that it's wild as hell, but it's also out there in that you can go find it if you look. It is hidden, but it's also in plain sight because there's soft disclosure everywhere. All of your pop culture, sci-fi, fantasy, and horror has an element of soft disclosure in it, just about. Some of it's almost too on the nose. Some of it's almost perfect. Some of it's like almost literally what happened. Don't worry, Rusty. You don't have to defend. Sorry if you feel attacked by what I'm saying. I'm not attacking you. I'm just telling you that that story is made up entirely, out of whole cloth, with no basis in any tradition at all. It is literally a corruption of older mythology, a misrepresentation. That's all I'm saying. And the problem is a lot of people believe it. Or a lot of people believe that it's possibly true, or that it's like some kind of basis for things. So, all right, guys, I'm going to have to go. I didn't realize what time it was, and my wife's got to sleep. She's got work tomorrow. So thank you guys for joining me tonight. I was going to end at midnight, and I kept going. So thank you guys very much for enjoying the stream with me. I hope you guys learned some things, and you weren't too off-put by my tones and my intentional smug arrogance. Really just an act, guys. I'm actually the most humble person that's ever lived. I am literally the most humble, the most just so unimportant person. I all right, guys. So anyway, I should be here next week on Thursday, all things willing. Otherwise, I'll be back at some point. Check out my Discord, check out my links in the description, and check out EA's stuff that's also linked in the chat. In fact, let me pin it. I forgot to pin it like an idiot. Where'd it go? Let me pin it real quick. I might not be able to. It's way up there. All right. Well, you know what? I'll post it again and I'll pin it. How about that? Or you could, of course, just Google the guy. It will pop up. Man, I keep doing it. I keep putting it in, and I don't put a space in. Oh, there we go. There we go. Should come up as 2 links. No. Well, one of the links works anyway. Yeah, get your Koetting while it's hot. I'll pin this one. All right, there we go. All right, guys. So that